Hey, welcome to the 430th episode of the Random Podcast from Heck. My name is Tony, and this is the podcast about random things in the world of entertainment, which includes movies, TV shows, and hopefully some comics. Big shout out to Andrew Logan. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the secret podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes of podcast entertainment every single week. I've been doing some classic what if look backs, like from the 80s. Some cool episodes, like last week was what if Spider-Man's clone had lived? So this is like years before the clone saga was probably even considered. We get to see what happened if that actually did happen. Some interesting things. I'm hoping, maybe, possibly, doing Off My Mind this week. I have an idea. I haven't really thought too much about it. I might just pull the trigger and just start recording, see where it goes. We'll find out. But if you can't commit to a monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 3. And that is ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. So what is going on this week? So trying to wrap everything up. It's been a little, it's stuff going on, whatever. But what we have, a movie feature, Wicked for Good. So you can hear about that. Yeah, one thing they're saying, I think it might have a bigger opening than the first Wicked. So that's great for them. We will have, for TV shows, we got another Pluribus, another It, Welcome to Derry, and another Fionna and Cake, Adventure Time Fionna and Cake. A lot of stuff happening in all those shows. I'm really digging all those shows. And then we will have the news and hopefully some comics. With the comics, I'll just say right now, I haven't had a chance to read all of them. So depending on how what I can squeeze in, I may try to like re-edit and stuff like that. I'll just be honest right now. So as you're probably aware, it is Thanksgiving time in the United States, and I got like family stuff going on. And while I've made sure I have recorded an episode every single week, I've done full episodes every single week for 430 weeks. I have not missed a single week. I've always had an episode, something going on, whether it's Comic-Con or the holidays or whatever. I'm determined, you will get an episode this week. I just don't know if I will be able to get through all the comics in time. What I could try to do is maybe, if I remember, talk about them next week, but I may not, we'll see. Because as I record this weekend is going to be crazy, and I need to get this out by Sunday and so forth. So we'll see. I'll do my best, but maybe if I can squeeze it in later, just edit it in and still talk about some of the bigger comics and try to pick it up next week. As far as the news goes, there's a few things. Let's talk about Zach Kreger. We'll start with that. So he's, as you probably are aware, he's doing a Resident Evil movie, which that's cool. That's exciting. I can't wait. And what's interesting, I think someone asked him about, I forget how it came up, is like about the other Resident Evil movies, and apparently he has not seen any of the Resident Evil movies. And in some ways, I hate to say it, the Resident Evil movies, there's something interesting about them. In the last few years, I went and rewatched the first, because it turns out I hadn't seen all of them. I know I'd seen the first one. I don't even know if I saw any. I don't remember if I saw any ones after that. But I did go through and watch all of them, and I talked about them on the Secret podcast. So there are episodes of those there. So if you're a Patreon member, you have access to that, so you can hear recaps and thoughts about those movies. So there's something. They get very ambitious. They're like all over, and they are a departure from the game. But then slowly they start weaving in some elements and so forth. So I found those interesting, even though they're just different. You just keep that in mind. Zach Kreger's never seen the movies, but he has played the game religiously, he said. So he's very excited, interested, like the structure of the games and all this stuff like that. So I'm excited about that because the Resident Evil games hold a special place in my heart. Even though I have not played all the games, I've played a few of them. I've finished some of them, and the last game I ever played was one of them, and I'm excited to see like what he's going to do. When we had that Netflix show, it was okay. It was interesting. It was something a little different. I was bummed that it didn't get renewed for second season, even though it wasn't perfect. I still wanted to see more from that, but yeah. So hopefully this will be something. And also with Zach Kreger, as far as the Aunt Gladys prequel, that's still in development. So that'll be interesting to see. And if you don't know who Aunt Gladys is, I'm not going to say anything about it, but we'll have that. There was a trailer for Hunger Games, Sunrise on the Reaping. And so this is coming out November 20th, so like a year from now, 2026. And I'm excited for that. I listened to the audiobook of this one, and it was good. I enjoyed the last prequel one we had, surprisingly, because I was like, who wants to hear about President Snow? But they did a good job with that, and I really like this one. I feel like there's more potential here because this is dealing with Haymitch as when the Quarter Quells when he was in the Hunger Games, and there's some other characters that we know that we're familiar with. So I think that's gonna be fun and exciting. The Penguin season 2, apparently they've started discussing possibilities. So it's nothing like really firm or anything, but it's like they would be smart to do it, right? Because everyone really enjoyed the first season. So if they can make that happen, that's great. It'll be more money and more excitement and stuff like that. So hopefully they can make that happen. What doesn't sound like it's going to happen is Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy. They said it's basically quote unquote effectively dead, and he had ideas. He was very ingrained. He really wanted to do this stuff like that. It sounds like it's kind of because of Knives Out. He really got like involved with those, and he's happy doing his own thing. But it doesn't sound like the timetables are lining up. So I don't. You would think like, whoa, can he do it in like 2 years or 3 years? But I don't even know if what details were released, like what this would be, because it sounded like it was something totally different. It wasn't really connected to like Rey and Finn and Poe and all that stuff. So who knows? Maybe at some point, or maybe never. I don't know. There's a rumor for Spider-Man. Tombstone. Is he appearing in movies? I don't remember. I can't keep track of like what's real and what's not. But there's a rumor that there may be big plans for him, and I can see that. Is whilst Tombstone's not like he's not like a Thanos level villain, but we have Kingpin. Kingpin's such a big deal in the Daredevil stuff shows. You can't just have Daredevil. And so it makes sense, if we're going to do like Punisher or whatever, if we want to have more street villains, are we going to have more Jessica Jones? Are we going to do whatever, stuff like that? So it would kind of make sense that we need more, street level villains as well. We can't just have big cosmic threats all the time. So I could see that they're like, we need to establish, more in case we want to do other stuff like that. And not that he would appear in everything, but, maybe he'd appear in something else, or I don't know. There was I saw something about it. I didn't see anything when I was trying to, just doing my last minute search for news, where, Sadie Sink is going to be in Spider-Man, Brand New Day. Awesome, great. I think she is amazing. And we don't know what she's doing in Spider-Man. Who is she playing? Everyone's like, oh, she has red hair, so she's going to be Mary Jane. I don't think they would do that because we have Zendaya is MJ, is Michelle, whatever. I forget what the J is. So it would be weird to kind of like double dip. It's like she's not, Zendaya is not Mary Jane, but she's kind of Mary Jane. She's kind of taken that role even though she's not. It would be weird if all of a sudden Peter Parker does meet someone else with the same MJ initials. So I feel like they're not going to go there. And, a lot of people are like, oh, she's going to be Mary Jane. Oh, no, she's going to be Jean Grey. Jean Grey and Spider-Man, that is like the most bizarre, like, assumption, connection, whatever you're trying to do. And the idea is like, oh, you're going to try to introduce the X-Men. So let's go through an established thing, but also you're try to introduce the X-Men in a Sony run movie. That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know, and just because she's in a Spider-Man movie doesn't mean that she has to be like a superhero character, because she could just be like Kathy from the coffee house or something. It doesn't have to mean anything. But where people are starting to get excited, rumblings, apparently, and this is where I couldn't confirm this. There is apparently, I don't know if it was Deadline or someone said that Sadie Sink was cast in Avengers Doomsday Now. So if she's going to be in this big, this movie where like almost every Marvel character, past and present, pre-MCU, whatever, if all these characters are appearing, what the heck is Sadie Sink going to be doing there? If she's Kathy from the coffee house or whatever, I think you could have her, because maybe she becomes Peter Parker's girlfriend. And maybe before, maybe signing up, if you have so many characters, it's not like every single character is going to be on screen for, 2 hours. They may be up there for 5 minutes or 2 minutes. So it could, just because you're cast, you could be cast as a cameo. Your cast doesn't say how long you're going to be in there. So who knows? But like I said, I think she's great. So I'm down. I want to see her as a bigger character, that we could see more, because I love the Marvel movies so much. So I don't know. I can't remember if someone says like, oh, maybe she's gonna be Jessica Drew or whatever, which that doesn't make sense. But we'll see. Who knows? And again, this is all rumor stuff. Another rumor. There's all this stuff about Sabrina Carpenter now. Apparently, so there's talk of her being in like a Tangled, live action Tangled, but then a report said that she's not going to be Rapunzel because she was too pretty to be Rapunzel, and what they want is someone that's a little more plain looking. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying Sabrina Carpenter's not pretty, but part of it is, how much makeup does she normally wear as part of her look? Because I'm sure she looks a little different than when she's not all fully make-upped. And I'm not saying she looks plain without it, but at the same time, you could make someone look a little more plain using makeup. So that seems weird. I don't know if that's the reason why. But then they're saying that she's this. I feel like there's like the Sabrina Carpenter kick. So she's like the hot commodity to get clicks or whatever. So there's a rumor that she's being eyed for a major Marvel role. It's like, yeah, of course she is. Everyone is. Whenever you're trying to get the rumor going, here's a rumor about something Marvel, and it feels like there's just, I don't know. I feel like people just really grasp at straws. There could be something, again, what do I know? But of course, who could they say, Sabrina Carpenter, Marvel, oh, she's going to play Dazzler. And it's just, this is why I'm kind of like, whatever, because the same thing was being said about Taylor Swift for the longest time. They're like, Taylor Swift's going to be Dazzler in an X-Men movie or whatever, or Deadpool, and she's friends with Ryan Reynolds, so she's going to be Dazzler, and blah. That never happened. So I don't know. But then the other interesting thing, so if she's not going to be entangled, if she's being eyed at Marvel, but then there was talk, and I haven't heard anything like just this week, but I know before and maybe this isn't true. They're saying, and I don't remember where I read it. It might have been Facebook. I don't know if it was an actual legit place reported on it, that she might be Alice in an Alice in Wonderland movie. And I think there might be like some singing involved with it, like semi-musical type of thing or whatever. So that's all awesome. And yes, Sabrina Carpenter is an actress. She was, the first I ever heard of her was in Girl Meets World. And I thought her, the few episodes I watched with my daughter, the very few, she didn't watch like the show consistently. But the few episodes I saw, she was great in the show. I thought, she did a really good job acting and all that. She was on Saturday Night Live, I think, a couple times. I didn't watch those because I don't really watch the show. Nothing against it. I don't really watch live television, especially on weekends or whatever. So she could act. I'm sure she can act. But the thing is, she's also singing. Is she gonna like put like music on hold? Because she just put out an album. I don't know what her plans are for tours. Has she toured? Is she gonna tour? But then if you're gonna do like a movie, that takes a big commitment. And yeah, you could try to make it all happen, but it seems like you got to pick one or the other. Especially if you're gonna try to do like a Marvel something that feels like that's a bigger commitment. Unless she's like, hey, I'm only gonna do one movie, or maybe I'll do two movies, but I don't know. So it's I'm so skeptical of these rumors, even though I'm constantly reporting on them. I don't believe in any of them really, but you never know. So that's why I do mention them. So it's just I feel it's kind of silly, but maybe there's something there. Jon Favreau. So there's we got Mandalorian and Grogu movie coming out. Awesome, great. But then there's a lot of talk. What about Mandalorian season 4? Is that going to happen and stuff like that? He said, and I still wasn't really clear on the wording. I don't know if it's so. Mandalorian and Grogu, whatever, is coming out May 22nd, 2026, I believe. Right? That's next year. It's happening. But with season 4, because then a lot of people are like, well, if they're doing a movie, then that must be the end, because you don't usually do like TV, movie, TV. It's like TV, and then movie, or nothing else. But he said that like with season 4, and they weren't really promoting it before, because I think they're trying to keep the talk on the movie. He says that season 4 is written sitting on his desk, so he has it mapped out or written. So maybe we'll get more. I mean that's fine. It feels like it's been so long since we've had Mandalorian and Grogu. So yeah, it's been too long. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles said they were going to do the Last Ronin. So I read at least the first couple comics, and it was pretty cool. It's darker. It's more in the future. The other Ninja Turtles are dead or something like that. There's only one. I think that's what the story was. Obviously, Last Ronin. He's the last one. So they were going to do a live action movie with it, which is like, wow, okay, that's pretty ambitious. That's cool, because I know people really like that comic series, and I would have read it more, but I just forgot in time and all the usual stuff. But now they're saying that the movie has been canceled, and I'm like, what, really? It's like, why cancel? Why not postpone or something like that? But it sounds like what's happening with Paramount and Skydance or whatever, that they weren't quite ready, because the last one is going to be like an R-rated live action Ninja Turtles movie. And they're like, okay, we haven't had a live action Ninja Turtles in like 10 years, or in the last 10 years. Apparently they weren't quite ready to go back with an R-rated movie. So I think the idea is like, we'll do another live action Ninja Turtles, but maybe we'll do something that's a little more, available to everyone, and not just something rated R. Okay. So, but again, does that mean it's canceled, or is there still a possibility? I mean, obviously, if they can make like a regular, like a PG or PG-13 version, and it's a success, then they're going to want to build, continue that whatever franchise. And it would be weird that if you have a live action that's a success, and then to have another live action, in the future, just darker. Apparently, audiences aren't intelligent enough to handle that. That seems to be the thinking. So I don't know. Squid Game, the possibility, so if you watch the last Squid Game, spoiler, there's a possibility of a Squid Game America, is what it sounds like. And there was like some production something where it's like stuff is copyrighted or set or something. There's some like official document or somewhere, and it sounds like that has been registered or something like that, and they're saying that production is going to be starting in February 26, 2026. So we could be getting more Squid Game, like kind of continuing. But then, like obvious question is, will anyone from Squid Game 1, 2, and 3, will they appear have some sort of cameo or not. So that would be interesting. I hope it's good because I really enjoyed Squid Game. I kind of want to go back and watch the first one because I feel like yeah, but we'll see. And the last bit of news, man, I hope this happens. James Cameron said that he's talking to Alita Battle Angel. So it's like, oh my gosh, like what the heck is going on? He's always felt very passionate. I remember seeing some, he wanted to direct it himself. He just couldn't make it happen because of all the Avatar stuff. So then, working with Rodriguez, that's how they made it happen. But what is going on? Where it's been so long, I don't even remember the year, but he's promising that there will be another one. He says that he and Robert Rodriguez did a blood oath to make a second one happen. And then they're talking about like even doing like a possibility, like having it like bridging into like a third movie. It's like, okay, settle down there. Give us a second movie first before you start saying that there's going to be a third one. So I don't know. I mean, I thought that there's something about those movies or that movie. And I've read a little of the manga, not a whole lot. I have like, the first volume of this like oversized book. So I hope it happens because I thought the first one was amazing and it was so underrated. It's unfortunate, but I think it'd be great. And I've been waiting on the edge of my seat, whatever, for any word. So hopefully something will happen, and hopefully more will happen in this show. Because as I said, I'm not sure, but that is going to be the news for the week. All right, with comic books, so this is, again, the part where I feel bad. I will try to come back and see, no promises. I can't guarantee I will come back and read some of these, and for this episode, possibly next episode, we'll see. But there was, apparently, it looks like there's Gatchaman 14 came out, and I love Gatchaman so much. And same with Speed Racer. I think, no, Speed Racer, I don't think came out. There may have been Racer X issue 3, but then there was Space Ghost, and this is like now Dynamite. I believe there was issue 5 came out. So I'm really enjoying that. What's weird is there's a Terminator Metal comic. So now we're like dipping into like Dynamite. It's apparently by Declan Shelby because I fell behind on Terminator. I really liked what they were doing. I did question, and it's kind of silly since I haven't keeping up. I wasn't reading, but my fear was, okay, you're gonna have all these from the Terminator comics appeared is Skynet, or they're saying, okay, let's not just go after John Connor. Let's go after other people's ancestors who are like big resistance, people. So if we kill these other people, because like too many times, go after John Connor, and it's like that's the obvious target. So the resistance tries opposing that. So if they can go after other, strong resistance people, then that's going to give them an edge. But then it's like, okay, so we're going to just constantly get Terminators going into the past, trying to eliminate people, and then they'll either be stopped or not. And that could feel a little redundant after a while, but who knows? So we have this other series. I'm curious. I wish I did have the time and everything to read that. Now with Image, see, I haven't even read Image comics this week. There's Exquisite Corpses number 7 that I haven't got to. Maybe I can get to it. I don't know. There's a new comic called Final Boss. I don't know anything about it. Cover looks kind of cool. It's looks like it's by Tyler Kirkman and David Miller. No idea. I always like trying to check out the Image, the number ones, especially if it's creators that I know and have enjoyed in the past. So I don't know. There's also Capes number 1 by Robert Kirkman and Mark Englert. So I don't know anything about that. But yeah, so apparently I thought I read. It doesn't look like I read anything from G.I. Joe 14 even? Man. Yeah, so I don't know. I can't guarantee anything. So I'll stop saying that because that's not really getting us anywhere. Okay, but at Marvel, I read some stuff. We have. Oh, see, I didn't read. I thought I read. I didn't even read Gwen's. Yeah, there was all new Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider. I meant to read that because with the Marvel ones, I try to read them in alphabetical order. Usually, I was going to read that, but then I ended up reading the Doctor Doom one. Okay, but we'll get to that in a second. Amazing Spider-Man 16. So every other comic is kind of flipping back and forth between like Earth and space because Spider-Man, spoiler, is out in space. On Earth, spoiler, I don't know if I've mentioned it. I don't know if we should mention it. Someone else is posing as Spider-Man on Earth. Two people are sort of posing as Spider-Man and Peter Parker on Earth. So the Spider-Man is probably not who you might think, but it's interesting. This person posing as Spider-Man, if you aren't aware, I don't know what's out in the solicits, or I don't think any covers have shown it, but this person is really getting into like this is what Spider-Man goes through. You know, this is the things like the sacrifices he makes and everything, and this person is kind of seeing it as like almost like a redemption, and they're starting to realize that they actually need this. The other Spider family, they confronted him. They're like, "What are you doing? We know you're not Spider-Man. You can't do this." And the guy's like, "Well, I've been working with him. I know him and whatever." And they're like, "Yeah, but you're not Spider-Man. Leave that to us." But then this person is like, he's realizing that he needs this. He wants this. So I don't know what's going to happen if Spider-Man comes back. And then, is he going to be willing to give this up? So there's some interesting stuff. We got this new character, Plague RX. He looks silly. I saw this post, and it's so annoying, where people are just like tearing this comic apart before they even read it. They're like, "Oh, what's this? Marvel's doing Hush." It's like, okay, you got a guy with bandages, so automatically they're saying that it's a Hush clone. It's like, no, that's just stupid. And you can see he's like whipping this Spider-Man on the cover with like a stethoscope. It's like, wait, what? That's not quite what he does, but I guess I shouldn't describe. But Plague RX, I'm going to say I don't like the character already, just from this one appearance. But part of it is this Plague RX is bad news. So they have a very interesting ability, which is a problem. So yeah, we do have that. So if Spider-Man does run into him, yeah, you gotta be careful. Captain America, number 5. So this is a Chip Zdarsky comic, Valero Sheedy, and this is like taking place in the past, where Steve Rogers thawed from the ice. He decides, like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go back in the army, right? And he's, going on a mission. They're actually on a mission to Latveria because there's, like, some U.S. people that were there and being held. So it's like, oh, they're being used as hostage or whatever. We have to free them. But there's more stuff going on. And, we had some interesting exchanges between Cap and Doctor Doom, which is very interesting because, Doctor Doom knows who Captain America is from the old stories, and and he was trying to say, yeah, I didn't like Hitler, so I don't agree with that. So you're a hero and everything, even though Doctor Doom is basically like a tyrant himself, and yeah. So there's some interesting things here. That's all I'll say. So you should definitely read those 5 issues to see that. There's a Godzilla Destroys Marvel Universe, number 5. I would like to read this series. I didn't because I know it's kind of silly, and it's a matter of time. But Gary Duggan wrote this. Yeah, I should read that. Okay, the X-Men ones. I don't even want. I despise these books so much, and no offense to any of the creators working on them. I don't like the idea. I can appreciate having these different adventures. There is something cool about that. It's like, okay, because I like the what if books, but here you can say like, okay, here's a little character. We're going to branch off this. We're going to do this. We're going to twist things around and all that. That's all cool. But for me, because as I'm scrambling, I barely have time to read these as it is because of my stupid schedule and trying to do way too much. And it's like I'm reading these stories, but there's probably not going to be any lasting repercussions. We might see some seeds, but no, all this is happening after. So what I'm assuming is going to happen, because we already know there's already been press releases about the next like Marvel next X-Men story, whatever is going to happen. There may be some elements here, but it has to go back to before Doug does all this stuff, and he has to be stopped. So seeing like the last Wolverine, who cares? And maybe this Wendigo Jr. character is in around. I don't care. So we have the last Wolverine. I don't know, and if I had more time, maybe I would read some of these. But it's like I don't even want to. Yeah, I'm not going to get these comics. I'm not going to whatever. We had Nova Centurion #1. This is by Jed MacKay. I'm a little on the fence with this. And I love Jed MacKay as a writer. Let's see, the art was by Alvaro Lopez. So we got some cool art. This is picking up after the Imperial stuff, where Richard Rider, came back and, get with Nova Force and Nova Centurion, whatever, all that stuff. So there's some cool things. The downside is it's not that it's not really dreary, but there's like things at stake, and part of it is because Rich he's like the last Nova, and so he's you got to be careful with that, and he doesn't have a lot of resources, so it's like what can he do? How can he he needs, in order to like power and just carry everything. He needs money. He needs credits, and how is he going to do that if he can't just fly around and like, oh, I'm going to save the day. You need help? Sure, I'll help you. But then what he's going to say? Oh, give me $5, or 5 Flark units or whatever. So there's some. I enjoyed this comic, but it's just, where is this going to go? I just wonder, and it's because it's Galactics, the Marvel, whatever. I don't always love that stuff, but I really like Nova. So, we'll see where this goes. Then we had Omega Kids. What issue #2? No, One World Under Doom. This is it's weird that like this is the last issue, because it's almost like the fight is over. So what I'll say, there's these minor spoilers for issue 8. So listener, don't listen to this next minute or whatever. Is Dr. Doom was like he was doing something like making like set points in time where he would get defeated by the heroes, and then he's like, okay, ding, drop a pin here. I'm gonna go back to before they do this. So then they can't go back, they can't mess with this, so that I will be able to override this and change that, whatever. So all this stuff's happening, they're being attacked, big plans, everything like that, and accidentally someone comes in to try to talk some words, and Dr. Doom's like, dude, you need to stop this. You need to stop fighting the world. Just settle down, chill out, and let's try to figure out something. So we're talking about Valeria, his goddaughter. Dr. Doom has such a soft spot for her. He actually cares for her. And Dr. Doom doesn't care for anyone. Maybe his mom's spirit or whatever, but he just does not give a rat's butt whatever for anything except for Valeria, and he accidentally killed her, and there's no way to go back and change that because it was locked in. So he can't just like travel back because however the reasoning works. So what's he going to do? And this is kind of dealing with that. And like, what's the Fantastic Four going to do? And how do you this is crazy. This is big news. So as much as I have not been enjoying this One World Under Doom stuff, the fact that he did that's like pretty big. That's pretty big for a strike against Dr. Doom. It's like he has to deal with that. And obviously you would think it's like, well, there has to be some way to fix this. But is there? It comic book does. Yeah, that means nothing. But what can Doctor Doom? How can he do that? What will be the price if he tries to fix it? Can he fix it or no? And if he doesn't, then that is going to majorly change the way the dynamics between Doom and Fantastic Four, because you can't do that. You can't kill a child. So he needs to figure out some way to fix this. Otherwise, it's going to majorly change things. So that's all I'll say. Predator Kills Marvel Universe #4. I should read this because I've been reading the other ones. It's so silly, but I'm going to assume maybe Craven's going to get his just desserts at some point. I hope. We'll see. Punisher #3. I am curious about this. I don't like what Kingpin is doing here. How he's kind of manipulating, whatever you want to call it, the Punisher. So I need to go back and see that. Did I read anything else? That might be all I read at Marvel. Let's see. Radioactive Spider-Man #2, right? Yeah, I'm not going to read. I probably would never read this. This is one of the Age of Revelation. There's a Spider-Man Holiday Spectacular. This could be fun. It's written by Rainbow Rowell. Yeah, I don't know. Because it's a holiday special. How many pages is this? It's like 20-something pages, 27 pages. I don't know. I didn't read it. I don't know if I will. Let's see. Then we have The Ultimates, #18. I should read this. I mean, I normally do read The Ultimates. I don't love The Ultimates as much. I mean, I only really like Ultimate Spider-Man. But I feel like with the I don't even remember what they're called. Not incursions. It was from the Ultimate Incursion. Was that what it was called? The Miles Morales thing. So I feel like there could be something here that's gonna. I have a hard time believing that Marvel is just gonna end the Ultimate Universe and leave it at that. So I feel like probably that this is what's coming out of with this sphere thing that you see on the cover. That this is a way to continue the Ultimate Universe, but maybe I'm wrong. There's Unbreakable X-Men #2, and I feel like this cover is the same cover. Have we seen this before? Because we have on the cover. I'm pretty sure that's Gambit. Like Gambit got blinded. Because when I first saw it, I was like, "Is that Cyclops?" But it's not. But I feel like we've seen that. I don't know if he's just been in a similar pose in the first issue or something. I don't know. Yeah, so I don't care about that. There's X-Men Book of Revelation #2. I don't even know. Because at first I was like, oh, I should probably read this. This is written by Jed McKay. I feel like this is like the big bookend books, but again, I don't care. And then we have X-Men. What's X-Men of Apocalypse? Issue 1, Jeff Loeb. I don't know if I care. I mentioned this before. I never really cared for Age of Apocalypse. I'm pretty sure I've talked about that. Now, if you liked it, again, that is great. I'm not saying it's not good. I didn't care for it, and part of it's the same reason I like the X-Men Revelation stuff, because I know I've said this way too many times. Is with Age of Apocalypse, it interrupted all the stories, it hijacked all the books. We got these other ones. Yeah, sure, we got some cool things. Got to see Wolverine different, Nightcrawler different. But then at the end of the story, it's like then it goes back to normal. So there's a difference if you're able to afford comics and read them for fun. That should be the point. Is you are reading these for enjoyment. But for me, it's always been, well, I read this character, so I need to read all the appearances of this character, and I'm not enjoying this story arc, but I'm reading this book. I'm invested in this character, so I need to read it. So that just seems like kind of like a weird way to. And it's almost like, I don't know if it's like a FOMO thing where, you're afraid that or me is like, oh, if I don't read it, then I'm going to miss out on something. And there have been some other books that I've stopped reading and big things are happening. I'm not reading the Black Panther comics. I have no idea. I still don't understand the whole Wakanda space thing. I don't understand how that's possible. How T'Challa can be in space and on Earth and the Avengers, and I don't even know. When I was reading, I was like, oh, is this out of continuity? What if Wakanda had a galactic empire? I don't know. And I feel like there's something else that I wasn't reading, and there's like some big things. So I don't know. And I swear there's times I wonder, is it me or is it comics? Because there's like some comics that I'm just not enjoying, and it's a struggle to read. And part of it is because I'm trying to read them all for the podcast, that it becomes work. And it's not as much fun versus, I'm just going to kick back and read a comic. And, part of it is like, I need to read it this week. I need to read it versus like, maybe I'm 2 months behind in this book. That's okay. I'll just, read both of them and catch up. But I feel like if I don't read these books this week, then I've the ship has sailed. So that may not be the case. So that's it for Marvel. Again, we'll try to come back. I have not read a single DC book. And I'm not going to go into DC doesn't want me promoting their stuff because they don't want to work with. I mean, they do and they don't want to work with me. But whatever. I hold a grudge because the way they're handling things. So I feel like it's kind of, I'm not going to get in. I've already mentioned that. So what they had, there is absence. So maybe there's a couple books I do want to read. Like one in particular, Batman, Superman, World's Finest. I love to look at that cover. I think that cover reminds me a little like John Byrne. And I know it's not John Byrne because I know John Byrne doesn't, I don't even know what John Byrne's doing these days. But I am curious to read that. It looks like Lex Luthor and Joker like shaking hands, and it says, what could go wrong? So that seems like that could be a fun book. We got Nightwing 132. I'm invested in Nightwing. I am not super crazy about the latest story arc, but we'll see about that. Wonder Woman 27. I'm so tired of this Mouse King stuff, but maybe I don't know. Maybe there's gonna be some payoff here. I don't even know if this is the final story of the Mouse King stuff. And I'm starting to get very stuffed up, so it's like getting hard for me to talk in case I'm sounding a little different, and it hasn't really been happening lately, so I don't know if there's something in the air. I don't know. So if I'm sounding a little stuffed up, that's why I am stuffed up. There was an Absolute Flash number 9, Jeff Lemire. At some point, I feel like, again, if in an ideal world, I would go back and just binge all these issues, just read them all. But so and this is where I don't know if I'm missing out. I wasn't super crazy about some of the beginning. I was curious, but it got to the point where it's like, okay, I got to stop. I can't keep up with it, and I'm not enjoying it that much. But maybe there's something there. And New Gods number 12, I totally missed out on that. When it first started, I was like, oh, is this some New Gods miniseries, whatever? There could be some huge stuff happening here, with everything going on about Darkseid, yeah. And I don't know what I'm missing here. Titans, I haven't been. Oh, this is a KO tie-in. Oh boy, yeah. So Titans 29, and then there was a Superman Unlimited number 7, and this is where I feel like this isn't necessarily completely tied in, but whatever. Looking at this cover, it says Terror in Smallville, and I didn't click on it because I figured it was going to be spoilery for something, but I saw something where it said Chloe Sullivan's character, something is coming into the comics or something like that. So I'm going to assume it has something to do with this, and I don't care about what's her name that played Chloe Sullivan. Yeah, or I don't even want to mention her. But maybe I'll try to check that out. Then we have Justice League Red number 4. And I don't know if people are just not super crazy about this, whatever. I thought the first issue was okay. And then I missed the second issue, whatever. And then we got Catwoman. This is amazing. I've fallen behind on this, and I'm kicking myself, obviously. Catwoman is at issue 81. That is awesome. That is great. I hope it can make it to at least 100 before they decide to either cancel it or reboot it. but that's great. It's like, let these comics, work. It's the same thing with Poison Ivy. I wish I was keeping up with that. I stopped reading Poison Ivy because I was like, oh, there's probably only another issue or two left. I thought it was a miniseries, but no, I think it's amazing that these issues are running so long. I also think it's extremely amazing that these books with female characters that they're running, like Harley Quinn, whatever, these books. I think that's great, and I hope that proves that girls read comics, that it's not just guys, or maybe guys reading about. Why wouldn't a guy want to read about a girl? You just want to see dudes in spandex all the time, and maybe you like that. There's nothing wrong with that, but yeah. So that is a comics. Now, I don't know what I'll do. So if I am able to read and edit whatever. I don't know if I'll just say, oh, edit, update, I did read some stuff, or, am I going to, I don't think I'll necessarily cut out all that part that I just said. If you don't hear that, then you're never going to know. But I think what I'll do is, if I am able to read anything, even if it's just like a book or two or 5 books or something, then I'm just going to add it right here and just say update, blah, blah, blah. Okay. If not, if I don't have time, that is comic books for the week.
All right, Pluribus, Season 1, Episode 3, Grenade. Yeah, that, Grenade. It starts off, we're 2,000, is this right? I wrote this down, 2,617 days, 10 hours, 30 minutes, 41 seconds. Now I feel like need to go back and check that. But now this time, okay, yeah. So I guess that probably makes sense, because it was counting down. So this is 2,617 days before it all went down. And there's like some dude talking like, as you know, the human race grew up alongside glaciers during the ice ages. Cold stimulates ancient nerves. So they're basically, someone's going through like one of those ice hotels. It's like they use over 300 tons of ice to create this hotel. Guests are surprised to know how much snow weighs, over 10,000 tons. And one's like, wow, that's a lot. And then the dude's like, luckily, Norway has plenty of snow and ice. So these blocks were created by carefully smoothing the ice on our river as it freezes and harvesting it for storage in a nearby cave. Everything you see melts in the summer. We have different artists and artisans to help us build again each year. So every stay is truly once in a lifetime. That seems like okay. So I think it's fascinating, if you know what I'm talking about, that there's these like ice hotels, like everything is made of ice. I think that would be so cool and amazing. But it'd also be so super cold. I don't know if I'd like that. But this is kind of neat. The fact that everything melts, wow, that sucks. And then you have to rebuild everything. But to sell it as like, oh, you came here last year, this year it's going to be different. The ice, instead of a sharp corner here, it's more of a curve. It's different. So I don't know. And so then they arrive at the room. He continues talking. So who's here? It's Helen and Carol. So they've gone here. And this is a thing, maybe I'm just super naive, but there's more to the two of them than just, so Helen was Carol's like manager for her books. She's deeply upset that her friend died. Obviously, the way Carol is, she doesn't seem like she has many friends. So this could be like her only friend, like her best friend. And she died in front of her, when she took her to the hospital and all that. And then when Helen like grabbed her hand in the back of the like SUV when they were doing their book tour, like in the first episode, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. At first I was like, okay, I don't want to read more into it. Than it's like they're colleagues, they're friends, squeezing her hand, holding her hands. Like, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. No, there's more to it than that. They were a couple. Which makes sense then if you look at the fact that Carol's choice for the dude in her book was actually going to be a woman, but then she decided not to go with that. Okay, so we find out here because when they're staying at this ice hotel, and there's like one bed there, so it's not like oh, colleagues, friends. I mean, even so, that doesn't mean anything. But there's one bed, so we can assume there were a couple. That just intensifies the connection that they had, and why Carol is so possessive and defensive and upset that her one true love, not just her best friend, but her lover, is dead. So that's what I'm going with. So there's a bed, and Carol's like, the bed is made of ice? And she's like, Helen, we are sleeping on an ice bed? I could have saved that $100,000 and frozen my eggs right here, yolks and all. And then the dude's like, bathrooms around the corner. And he's like, if you keep going in this one direction, there's a hot tub deck that's always open. And then he's talking about, they probably noticed skies, wonderful this time of year. So he leaves. And Carol continues, she's like, how did I not realize that the bed would be made of ice? It's like, we just flew 16 hours to get frozen like Walt Disney. And Helen's like, Walt Disney wasn't frozen. That's a myth. And she's like, look at this place. It was worth the trip. And then Carol's like, do we absolutely have to go to every wacky place Rick Steves recommends? I mean, would it be so bad to stay somewhere that's not an experience, but just a really nice hotel? And Helen's like, can it be both? So Helen tries getting her to sit on the bed, have some room brandy or, there's brandy in or whatever, because she said it was really good. Carol's just like looking at Helen's phone, and then Helen says that she already talked to Val at the airport, and Carol's on the list. So she's like, congratulations. And Carol's just kind of like, almost like emotionless. And she's like, great. And then she's like, where on the list? And Helen's like, stop it. It's a bestseller. And Carol's like, I know, I'm just curious, where? So Helen's like, top 20. And Carol's like, okay, but like closer to 11 or closer to 20? And Helen's like, you're impossible. You're the most impossible best-selling author I know. She's like, come over here. And Carol's like, why? And Helen's like, just come over here. So, and then Helen like points to the windows like above, the northern lights, you can see them there. And she's like, I've always wanted to see them. And so much better than I ever imagined. And Carol's like, looks like a screensaver. So Carol gets her to sit and pulls like a blanket over them. And then it cuts to the plane. So Carol's in the back. The pilot talks over intercom, says that hopefully that'll be the last turbulence, smooth sailing from here. They're going to turn off the fast and seatbelt sign, so feel free to move about the cabin, Carol. He's talking to her because she's the only passenger. So again, she's on her back plane. So now it shows it's 03 days, 03 hours, 11 minutes, 10 seconds, and it's counting up. She like leans in the aisle, looks up. So pirate lady Zosha is like sitting at the front, like of the section. She like looks back at Carol, and then she gets up and walks back to her. And she's like, may we get you anything? And right away Carol's like, nope. And she's like, who's flying today? So then the intercom turns on. Carol, on the flight deck is Captain John McConnell and also First Officer Tom Deegan. And he's like, these individuals have a combined 51,619 hours of flight time. And between the two of them, they've piloted every variant of this capable and trustworthy Airbus A330 aircraft. You're in good hands. And Carol's like, that's weirder than the gal from TGI Fridays. He's like, you doing this because she freaked me out? That's an affirmative, Carol, yes. And she's like, please stop that. Because, they just like answer. Because Zoe's just standing right there. So, everyone can hear what she's saying. Because they're all like one mind. But the pilot is literally, can't hear her, but he's hearing her through Zosha and answering her over the intercom. And then Zosha's like, it's much more spacious up in first class. You sure you won't be more comfortable up there? It has lie flat seats. You can get some rest. And Carol's like, I'm fine. I'm fine where I'm at. Thank you. And Zosha goes back to her seat. And then, I don't know if Carol's being a jerk, but as soon as she sits, she like pushes the call button. So Zosha gets up, goes back there, and then Carol's like, back in Spain, that was all the English speakers, right? And Zosha's like, anyone with conversational ability, yes. And then she's like, tell me about the non-English speakers. And she's like, certainly, what would you like to know? And Carol's like, anything, everything. So then there's Bora Kolak, who is a candy vendor in Istanbul, and he speaks Turkish and he loves cats. In Bali, there's Ida Ayu Dewey. So I wrote down the names, because I don't know if these are the other, part of the only people who are not converted or whatever. I don't know if they're going to appear in later episodes because it's kind of like a limited cast. So Ida Ayu Dewey's 23, speaks Indonesian, Balinese, and she's a contortionist and a dancer. Cedar Melis in Sardinia is a fisherman, or he was, but he's 89 now and retired. There's Mary Cuxi Akintola, who lives in Masura, Lesotho. And I was like, where is that at? I had to look it up. I had no idea. It's encircled by South Africa. And Carol's like, what does she do? So Zoja's like, her family raises Basotho ponies, but she's only 8 years old. And she hasn't decided on a profession. So Carol's like, next. So then there's Abdul Karim Al-Shari, lives in Aden, Yemen. He's 37-year-old Muzan. And she's like, what is that? So I looked this up too. Zoja said he sings a call to prayer, but when I looked up, it's supposed to be like a Muslim in I don't know, mosque or something like that. And Zoja's like, he has a powerful tenor voice. He also loves cats. And Carol's like, okay, but are there any medical doctors, any scientists, or an expert of some kind? And she's like, oh yes. According to Time Out magazine, Takio Kintanaka in Osaka makes the best udon noodles in the entire Kihashin. And Carol's like, that's not what I meant. Nope. He's like, all right, that makes 6. You didn't say anything about the guy from Paraguay. What about him? So she's like, his name is Manosos Oviedo. And she's like, we weren't aware of him for the first 33 hours. He manages a self-storage facility in Asunción. So far, he hasn't really communicated with us. And Carol's like, huh. She's like, I want to talk to him. And Zoja's like, he only speaks Spanish and a bit of Guarani. Do you want us to translate for you? And she's like, no, I'll manage. And she's like, first thing once I get home. So Zoja's like, well, we could try right now if you like. So Carol's trying to call him on a plane phone. It rings. And Zoja's like, he's been a bit reluctant to get in contact. After she ends the call after several rings and she hands it back to Zoja. She's like, try again. And Carol, as soon as she dials it, she just like rudely grabs the phone out of her hand after she dials. So after a couple of rings, it sounds like the phone picks up, but no one says anything. And so Carol's like, hola, senor, me llamo. He hangs up. And she's like, I think we got cut off or something. Try it again. Phone rings. And then she's like, hola, yo soy Carol Sotka. Estoy de los United States. He's like, no me joden más, déjame en paz, putas. And he hangs up. So he's like, no me joden más, don't bother me anymore. Déjame en paz, leave me in peace. And you know the other words, right? She hands the phone back to Zoja. She's like, get him back. And Zoja just like looks at him and she's like, get him back. So okay, warning here. Zoja dials again, the guy answers, and Carol yells on the phone, Chinga tu madre, cabron. And then she hangs up the phone. So she's like trying to get in contact with this guy, and she just like tells him off because he like cursed at her. So it was like, great way to make conversation. So Zoja's like, we're sorry, Carol. We don't think it was personal. But Carol just like storms off, goes into the bathroom, and just kind of like sits there. She's frustrated. She's defeated, doesn't know what to do. Zoja drives Carol home, and she's like, bye, Carol. So Carol just gets out without saying a word. And it's like, okay, if she's going to be so rude to Zoja, why did she want her not to go on the plane with that other dude who was going to Vegas? It's because she's just rude. And Zoja's like, really, please let us know if there's... And Carol just like shuts the car door, starts walking up her house. And then Zoja's like, Carol, she's like, one second. So she gets out of the car. She's like, we have something for you. She goes to the trunk. We gathered all the mail that was in transit for you. We think you're really going to like what's in the box. And Carol just kind of like gives her a look. She turns and goes in the house. And she's like, anything else we can do for you? Just let us know. Inside, she sets the mail on the counter, on a table, like where, and then she starts looking through the envelopes, sets some aside. And then there's one that's addressed to Helen from Fionna. And I think she set that one aside, whatever. And then she puts the other envelopes in the trash, and she looks over at the priority mailbox. She kind of hesitates, opens it. It's a Theragun, something like relieves aches and pains, eases soreness, reduce stress, sleep better. So it's like a massager or something like that. So she sets it down, picks up the phone. Hi, Carol. What can we do for you? And Carol's like, what exactly do you know about what's in the box in my mail? Zosha's like, Helen ordered it for you. You've been so stressed out on tour. You tried one on Atlanta airport, but you said it was too expensive. So Helen bought one online. And Carol's like, did she? And Zosha's like, she thought it would make a nice gift to celebrate the end of the tour, a homecoming present. And it's just like silent. And she's like, Carol? So Carol's like, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to forget everything you know about Helen. Every memory, every thought she ever had, get her out of your heads. And Carol, we apologize if it never mention her again. Never think about her again. Only I get to remember her. You got that? Only me. And she hangs up. She's like a little shaky. She looks like at the window and she sees Helen's grave in the backyard. So again, yeah, clearly Helen's more than just a friend. Then the countdown tells us it's 04 day, 4th day, 12 hours, 31 minutes, 21 seconds, and counting up. So Carol's watching Golden Girls, and she's lying on a sofa. It seems like she's like barely awake. There's like a bottle of pills on the table. Then her doorbell rings, so it like kind of wakes her up. She turns off the TV, gets up, and then there's like a red car. She looks out the window. There's a red car driving away. So she goes out, opens the door and looks around, and she notices on the ground there's like one of those silver dome tray things. She lifts it, and there's like steaming food underneath. And so she just kind of leaves it there. She goes inside to her phone. And Zosha sounds like very chipper. She's like, good morning, Carol. And Carol she's just so nasty. She's like, what's with the food? And she's like, it's the exact meal you had at the B&B you stayed at in Provincetown 2012. Remember? You were there to see the Indigo Girls. You were very complimentary at a chef that morning. It really stuck with her. And Carol's like, so you took it upon yourself to make me breakfast. And Helen's like, well, we know your fridge is pretty bare. You've only got tonic water, half a carton of oat milk, a jar of green olives, a jar of black olives, a jar of red olives. And Carol like cuts her off. She's like, I told you Helen was off limits. And Zosha's like, yes, of course, Carol. And so then Carol's like, so how the fuck? And she like stops. She like breathes because, she doesn't want to yell and freak them out and have them glitch out. How do you know what's in my fridge? And Helen's like, Teresa from Merry Maids, you had them clean up just before you got home from the book tour. Is the food not to your liking? Would you like us to make you something else instead? Nope. She just says it right away. I want you to leave me alone. And she hangs up. She puts the whole tray in the trash, and then she looks in her fridge, and she shakes the oat milk, and she like shows what you fudgers know. It's like 3/4 full. She closes the fridge, and she drives to Sprouts. And Sprouts is like a grocery store, in case you're not aware. She's still using that Deuce truck that she took, and she goes inside, she steps inside, and she like stops. All the shelves are like empty. There's like nothing. She's like, what the fudge? And she kind of walks around a little bit just to make sure. And she goes up to like one of the cashier, the lanes, and picks up the phone. She just dials 0. Hello. And she's like, what happened to my Sprouts? Are you the Grinch who steals supermarkets? And she's like, so sorry. We're consolidating resources to centralize useful items for distribution. Food, medicine, anything helpful from stores or businesses or what used to be private homes. It's just more efficient. And Carol's like, fine, I get it. Is there something specific you need? We can deliver to you anytime, anywhere. And Carol's like, I'm not going to call you every time I need something. I don't want you waiting on me. I am a very independent person, okay? I always have been. I fend for myself. I just want my Sprouts back. Absolutely, will do. And Carol's like, okay, great. So what? Can we say Friday maybe? I just need a rough estimate on when I should come back. We'll be there in a moment. And Carol's like kind of confused. She goes outside. Several semis drive up and like park in a parking lot. And several people kind of like seem like they will come out of nowhere, just like walk from somewhere into the parking lot. They start like unloading everything off the trucks, and there's like all sorts of people, ages and outfits. They're not like Sprouts workers, they're not delivery people, just like whoever was around. They're all smiling as they carry the boxes. The first dude comes up, he's to the door. He's like, Carol, can we sneak past you here? So they go inside, and she's like, can't believe what's going on. So then time fast forward to 4 days, 14 hours, 53 minutes, and 25 seconds. And she stands there as everyone like starts walking out. The shelves are completely full. It's like a fully stocked grocery store. one person's like, all set, Carol, call us theirs. And then this dude like or another person's like, something that you want that's not here. And a third person's like, we'll get it for you. And then outside the trucks leave, and the last of the walkers head out, and Carol, she's like standing there, and she grabs a shopping cart. So it's like, all this food is going to go there. Who else is going to use this? And that food's going to go bad, because Carol's not going to eat all that. And even if she comes back like the next day or whatever, so she had all this food shipped there, and it's just going to go to waste. Because, I mean, I don't know how many people live around there, but if they're consolidating, they're probably saying, okay, you know, these people, we're going to come over here now. We're going to, you know, instead of being all spread out, they can, yeah. At home, she eats, and she goes back to her, it's Golden Girls actually on DVD, because the DVD logo screensaver came on before. Then the power goes out. And she like starts cursing. She goes outside. There's like, she can see like city lights in the distance. They're like shutting off like section by section, like, and she curses again. She's like, you've got to be fudging kidding me. And, you know, if you think about it, like all these resources aren't, and it's like, does she want everything to be kept on just for her? Because it doesn't seem like anyone else is around there on the streets. And then the house lights go back on. So of course, what does she do? She goes in and picks up the phone. Hello, Carol. So sorry to startle you. We didn't mean to do that. And she's like, why are you turning off the lights? And they're like, yes, we know it was a mistake. We had a little problem isolating your branch circuit. They're back on now, right? The lights in your house? And she's like, yes. And they're like, okay. And she's like, why are you turning them off everywhere else? And Helen's like, for conservation. Just the ones that aren't necessary, which are, well, most of them. And Carol's like, what? Lights aren't necessary for you guys? Do you just see in the dark? And Helen's like, oh, no, not at all. It's just that there's no crimes to prevent. And we're not working at night except for essential operations, water treatment, hospitals, things like that. Carol's like, right, so it's more your efficiency. And Helen's like, yes, you donated twice to the Sierra Club, so we felt you'd understand. If you'd like, we'd be happy to restore the rest of the lights. And she's like, no, screw it, leave them off. You know, who gives a poop? And she's like, Carol, is there anything we can do to cheer you up? And she's like, cheer me up? She's like, why? I'm fine. I'm so happy. You know, obviously, sarcasm. Then she's like, there is nothing wrong with me that a fudging hand grenade wouldn't fix. You got one of those? Because I think that would be the perfect topper for the greatest week in human history. So she mentions a hand grenade. The name of the episode is Grenade. And then she like hangs up. And she goes, she takes her meds, whatever. She watches more Golden Girls. Then Zoja drives to Carol. It's still night. And Carol's just like, yeah. It's just, you know, rude. And she's like, hi, sorry it took so long. And she holds out a hand grenade. And Carol's like, a hand grenade. And Zoja's like, we thought you were probably being sarcastic, but we didn't want to take the chance. Were you being sarcastic? And Carol just like stares at her. And she's like, right, of course you were. Do you want us to take, you know what? We'll get rid of it. And she turns and stops. And she's like, feel better, Carol. And she starts to leave. And Carol's like, hey, do you maniacs drink? And she looks at her hand. And Carol's like, it's okay. You can bring the hand grenade. So Zoja goes inside. You know, Carol goes inside. Zoja follows. Carol pours like 2 things of vodka. It's like not even a vodka drink. It's just she pours some vodka into glasses. And Carol's like, does the whole world get drunk when you drink? Like, does some 6-year-old in Sri Lanka slur his words when you knock one back? And Zoja's like, no, it doesn't work like that. And Carol's like, huh. And she's like, how do you say cheers in Sanskrit? So Zoja says it, and she's like, roughly, it means, may everyone be blessed. And Carol's like, well then, shoopy shoop. And she takes a swig, like pretty much drinks like the whole thing. She pours some more. And Helen's like, you know the word vodka is a diminutive of voda, which meaning water, very similar to the Latin aqua vita, literally water of life. That becomes the Scandinavian aquavit, although the drinks are very different. And just fun fact, whiskey has the same root meaning in Scott Gaelic from the UC Betha. And Carol's like, you don't say. And Helen's like, what gives this particular brand its distinctive smoothness is it's distilled from both potato and corn. It is slightly alkaline. Do you taste that? Lower shelf alcohol tends to be acidic. The chief distiller learned the process from his grandfather. And Carol's like, and now you learned it by stealing it out of his brain. How long do I have left before you turn me into a worker bee? And Helen's like, it's a hard thing to predict. Scientific advances tend to ebb and flow. And Carol's like, that's not an answer. How long? We're working around the clock. It could be as soon as a couple of weeks, or it could take months or longer. And Carol's like, that's quite the range for someone who knows everything that there is to know. Regardless, sooner or later, I'm fudge. And she's like, sorry, Carol, we have a biological imperative. And she's like, you people make no GD sense. You know that? We want to make you happy, you say. Your life is your own, you say. And agency? I have all this agency. I mean, I guess I have agency until I don't. Carol, if you were walking by a lake and you saw somebody drowning, would you throw them a life preserver? Of course you would. You wouldn't think. You wouldn't wait. You wouldn't try to get consensus on it. You would just throw. And Carol's like, so now I'm drowning? She's like, come on. And Zoja's like, you just don't know it. And Carol's like, well, you people are brainwashed, is what you are. I mean, what could possibly be so great about this mind meld of yours? Actually, let me guess. It's all beautiful scenery, and you feel nothing but contentment, just wave after wave of bliss and peace, and everything is perfect. It's like living inside a postcard every second of every day. So she goes on, and she starts describing, time with Helen or something. And because she mentions hotel of ice, and Helen, or then Zoja's like under piles of fur, and then Carol's like, I told you that Helen was off limits. And Carol kind of leans into Zoja's face, and she grabs a grenade. And she's like, you are a bunch of mind fudgers. And she starts kind of fiddling with the grenade while Zoja sits there, and I don't know, she's like thinking. And then Carol's like, wow, you really have this thing jammed in there. And she pulls something out, but Zoja stands up. She's like, please be careful with that. And Carol's like, right, like you would give me a real hand grenade. But then something falls out, and she stands there. Because something popped out, so it's like, wait, because first she pulls something out, but it wasn't a pin, and then she's fiddling, and then something like flies off. Then Zoja's like, Carol, if we may, and she grabs a grenade out of her hand, throws it through the window, and pulls Carol down. Boom! And so then we see the front yard. There's some flame. The truck that she was driving has some it has some fire in it. Windows on the truck are shattered. The front of the house is kind of damaged. Carol kind of stumbles out, and she's like, "You gave me." And Zoja's out there, and then she collapses. She falls forward, and Carol goes to her and curses, and then there's blood on her back. So Carol takes off her jacket. And she's trying to soak up the blood because Zoja must have gotten debris and stuff, shrapnel from pushing Carol down. So Carol curses. She says that she's like, I'm gonna go get help. And Zoja's like, help is coming. And then you can hear sirens are on the way. Then it cuts to Carol sitting in a waiting room. It's daytime now. This dude in shorts and black socks, and he has a DHL shirt. He walks up and asks if he may join her. He's like, we're happy to say Zoja's doing much better. There was some blood loss, but no real nerve damage. He's like, she did get a pretty severe concussion that we're going to want to keep an eye on. She's resting now. Can we get you a fresh change of clothes? And he's like, Carol? She doesn't say anything. She's like, Carol, your quick thinking really saved the day. And then Carol's like, why would you give me a hand grenade? And the guy's like, you asked for one. And she's like, why not give me a fake one? And he's like, sorry, we got that wrong. So Carol's like, if I asked right now, would you give me another hand grenade? And he's like, yes. And she's like, even after last night, you would give me another? And he's like, oh, sure. So Carol's like, okay, how about a bazooka? And the thing that a bazooka shoots, a rocket or whatever. And guy's like, yes. And she's like, all right. What about, I don't know, a tank? And he nods, mm-hmm. And she's like, what about an atom bomb? And he's like, why would you want one? And she's like, to blow poop up for kicks. Like, what does it matter? You gave me a grenade for fudge sakes. It'd be okay to say no at this point. That would be sane, not utterly bat poop crazy. And he's like, if you truly wanted a nuclear weapon, we would weigh the pros and cons with you. we would explain that it would be very destructive. And she's like, yes or no? And he's like, ultimately, yes. Wouldn't necessarily feel good about it, but we would move heaven and earth to make you happy, Carol. Would you like an atom bomb? And she's like, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. And he's like, okay. Would you like a cup of coffee? One sugar with oat milk, right? And maybe a pinch of... She's like, you can go. So he leaves, and then she like sees or notices something, and then that's the end of the episode. So it's like, wait, what's going on? So that was crazy about the grenade. Yeah, she's like, they I don't know why she wouldn't think. They flew in a bulldozer with a helicopter, and they brought her an entire Sprouts store in like an instant. And she doesn't think that they would give her a grenade because she asked for one. It's like, okay, they would do whatever. And yeah, why? This is crazy. And where is this going to go? Is there any way to reverse this? Or is that it? I don't know. All right. Welcome to Derry, Season 1, Episode 4. I'm so enjoying this show. This episode, oh man, this things are getting intense. They're not watering things down, and I'm so appreciative. I'm so enjoying this, and I was so incredibly wrong when I was like, "Is this show really necessary?" So I'm just digging it, and even like Dick Halloran, the fact that he's here, when I first heard it, I was like, "Oh, that's great," but I was like, "Is this just like a cheap way to tie it into The Shining?" I was like, all right, we'll see. But yeah, I'm digging it, man. And yeah, so let's just jump into it. So it starts off, the four kids, they're, riding their bikes, Will, Lily, Rich, and Ronnie. And it's like during the day, they go to the police station and talk to Chief Bowers. So Bowers, obviously this is an obvious thing, but wasn't Bowers like the bully in the regular It? So I don't know if this guy is married, because I'm trying to think. It would have to be in the 80s, so it would be, yeah, I don't know. So they talk to him, and he's like, Lily, when last we spoke, you said you weren't quite sure you could describe what you saw at the theater that night. And she's like, I still can't, but now I don't have to and Rich blurts in, because we got pictures, Chief Bowers. He's like, we have one here. I think it looks like the monster version of Teddy, which is incredibly scary. And Ronnie like kind of cuts him off. And Chief's like, who is he? Because he doesn't know who Rich is. And he introduces himself. He extends his hand. He's like, Ricardo Santos, sir, but you can call me Rich. And Will pulls him back. And Lila's like, whatever killed Teddy, Phil, and Susie, it came after us again last night in the cemetery. And of course, he's not really listening to what she's saying. What does he say? He's just like, what were you doing in the cemetery at night? They're saying something tried killing them. He doesn't care about that. It's not like, who was it? What was it? What did you see? It's like, what were you doing there? Because he doesn't believe him. Richie starts going on about what his cousin told him. Will interrupts him, says that they were just cutting through. And Ronnie's like, yeah, we're taking a shortcut home. And then Chief's like, and you all just happened to have a camera with you when it did? And Ronnie's like, we were ready this time. And Chief Bauer's like, well, let's have a look-see. He opens up an envelope where they put all the pictures in, and he's like, oh my God. He's like, Kern, Wallace, look at this. So there's two other officers in there with him. And Wallace is like, Jesus H. Christ. And Kern's like, what the hell is that? And the kids are getting excited. They're kind of like smiling at each other. And then the Chief's like, is this pigeon poop? And he puts a picture down. There's like a picture of a tomb with like bird poop on it. And he starts like kind of flipping through. He's like, what's this? Oh, dead flowers. Helpful. Aunt Mary's headstone? A tree? He like scoffs. And he's like, so now he's frustrated. And then Will points at the last one. He's like right there. He's like, look, it's a clown, but it's dark. And Chief's like, a statue. Lily's like, no, are you blind? It's a clown. And Chief, I can't stand. He was like, you watch your tone, young lady. You walk into this office telling tall tales, and you show me this as proof. The only thing this is proof is that you, Lily Bainbridge, are trying to buy yourself a one-way ticket back to the nut house. And it's like, it's so rude and disrespectful, to talk to her like that. And
He's like, you kids keep your nose out of police business, or ghouls and goblins will be the least of your worries. Do I make myself perfectly clear? So then at school, when the kids are like, maybe it's a Dracula thing, like in the movies, how we can't see his reflection, but we see him. I think it was Rich that said that. And Lily's like, it could have killed us, but it didn't. It's like it's messing with us. And Will's like, the first thing I do is find out if there's history of stuff like this happening in Derry. And Ronnie's like, Lily, your mom grew up here, right? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, did she ever mention anything strange? And she's like, no. And if I ask about it, she'll send me right back to Juniper Hill. So then Ronnie starts like replying loudly, and they have like shush her because they're in the upper bleachers like in gym. So then she's like, you heard what Bauer said. They're going to transfer my dad to Shawshank. You don't come back from that place. She's like, please, I'm just asking. And Rich is like, no adult's ever going to believe what we saw. I wouldn't. And then Lily's like, wait, I know someone who might. So we see Lily's like having tea with the cleaning lady at Juniper. They're at like a diner. So Ingrid is her name. She's like, I haven't thought about it in years. Now that you mention it, I do remember some kids going missing in the 30s. Quite a few, actually. And Lily's like, really? And she's like, well, it was a depression, and a lot of families were starving, and some kids they just disappeared overnight. They probably ran away looking for something better or trying to relieve their families of a burden. You know, they were tough times. And Lily's like, but nothing like, and Ingrid's like, what you're describing? Oh, no, dear, nothing like that. But don't let that stop you from trying to figure out what's happening. My father always said to me that with good friends at your side, anything's possible. And it sounds like you have those. So we see a newspaper headline, local Negro arrested was it connection with missing children, I think it was. Charlotte's like reading the paper. Then someone's at the door. It's Rose for an antique store. And Charlotte's like, oh, this is a surprise. And Rose's like, oh, I thought I'd save you the trouble of, wrestling at home yourself. So her nephew's like unloading something. There's like a truck with a bunch of stuff. So Charlotte's like, I just put some coffee on. Would you like some? And she's like, always. So they're inside. Shar asks her if her folks are from the area originally. Rose says her ancestors settled in the valley here, but their homelands were much bigger back then. And, they would follow the elk herds all the way to Nova Scotia back then. And that was before, Manifest Destiny. And Shar says that, she's never been to Canada. And Rose asks, how is her husband adjusting? And, she supposes that they're keeping him busy working on that new pipeline. Because that's what, what's his name, said to her at the antique store, Francis. And she's like, oh, Leroy's a pilot. I doubt he's got anything to do with that. Not that he'd tell me if he did, but... And Rose is like, no? And Char's like, every time I ask him about his day, it's national security this and classified that. Man's got more secret than King Tut's tomb. And Rose is like, oh, it sounds a little lonely. And Char's like, oh, I knew what I was signing up for when I married a flyboy. He doesn't question orders. I question everything. And she's like, may I ask you something? This business with the theater, the missing kids. And she's like, it's a terrible thing. And Char's like, do I need to be concerned? Rose is like, Derry is a beautiful place, but things do happen from time to time. Never a bad idea to keep the people you love close. So Char kind of gives her a look. But Rose is like, tell you what, if you need anything to talk, a friend, call me. She writes down her number. So we see an army jeep drives this like fenced area, marked danger, keep out. Halloran brings his friends to like this old like building. There's like junk in it. It's full of spider webs. One's like, is this a little far from the base? And this one dude, Reggie's like, well, that's good. That means no one's going to hassle us. And others like, you sure it's ours? And he's like, Colonel said we could use it. And someone's like, no one else comes here? And he's like, boy, do you know what decommission means? And he's like, anything that they need has been cleared out a long time ago. So they talk about starting to clean the place, and then Dick kind of like stands there looking, and it's like, is he getting good vibes or bad vibes off this place? Like, what's going on? So basically, they're going to clean it up, and they can hang out there and drink and party or whatever. At school, the kids are watching this movie about ducking and covering if there's an atomic bomb attack. Lily's like distracted, and she like looks over at Marge. Will arrives at home later. He goes straight upstairs to his room. He goes in his bottom drawer to look for something, but whatever he's looking for is not there. His mom comes in. You looking for these? So she's got the envelope. She's like, I was tidying up and found these stuffed in an envelope in the back of the drawer. it's like tidying up. It almost seems like she was snooping a little bit. I mean, I don't know how obvious it was. She's like, what's going on, Will? He's like, I was, and she's like, and don't lie to me. So it's like, oh man. So later they're sitting on a bed and he's like, Ronnie's my friend. She swears her dad didn't do it. And I believe her, but the police don't because he works at the theater. And she's like, yeah, I know, baby. And he's like, so me and some other kids, we met up to try to figure out how to help her when, and she's like, when what? And he like doesn't say anything. She's like, what happened? And he like sniffles. He's like, it was dark. Someone came after us. We were scared and we ran. But Ronnie had a camera and she was trying to get some pictures. And he like gasps and sobs. He's like, she holds him and comforts him as he cries. And she's like, all right. It's like, no more running around till I find out what's going on around here. He's like, what? And she's like, school and back. That's it. He's like, Mom. And she's like, not another word. It's like, your daddy finds out you've been running around wild at night, you're going to get a worse punishment than that. It's like, we'll keep it between us this time. At night, dinner time, Leroy asks Will, how was this first week at school? He's like, fine. And Leroy's like, fine. Like, give me some details. So Will pauses and it kind of looks at Mom and she tells him, she's like, go on, tell him. And he like shakes his head a tiny bit and she's like, oh, for goodness sake. He's like, there is a girl. And he's like, Mom. And Leroy's like, oh, and he like chuckles. He's like, it's okay, don't embarrass the boy, Shar. And Will's like, can I be excused? And she's like, you haven't even had dessert. He's like, I have homework. So he goes upstairs. Leroy asks her about the girl when he leaves, and she asks, she doesn't say much because she doesn't really know anything. She asks if he's working this weekend, and he says he's not sure. He's waiting on a call. So she says that she was thinking if he was free, the two of them could do something because, he's been so busy since they've got here. And she's like, it could be good to get him out of his head for a change. And Leroy's like, yeah, maybe. And she's like, yeah, what are you thinking? So then it must be the weekend. They go fly fishing. They're like in this like kind of river, this stream. And Will's like, Dad, how long do we have to do this? And Leroy's like, have to? And he chuckles. He's like, I'm having the time of my life, spending time in nature with my boy like I used to with my pops. And it doesn't get better than this. And then he paused and he's like, tell me about this new girlfriend of yours. And Will's like, she's not my girlfriend. And Leroy like kind of grunts and snickers playfully. He's like, not yet? He's like, the year is young. Will kind of giggles. And then Will catches something and he gets excited. So Leroy tries helping him. He's like, relax, don't force it. But then it gets away. But Will's still excited. He's like, I got it. But his fly came off. So Leroy's like, okay, hold my line. He's like, I left a spare in the car. So right then, something's going to happen, right? If he's going to leave him alone. Leroy goes to his trunk. He's got like a kit with, all his bait, lures or whatever. Will's like completely alone in the stream. Then he sees this big fish comes up to him. And it's like, then it like swims down and Will's like kind of bends over a little, looks at it. And his big hand reaches out and grabs him. And I'll admit, even though something's going to happen, as soon as Dad's like, oh, I'll be right back. Something's going to happen. But it kind of gave me a little jump. So then there's like this face down underwater with like yellow eyes. At first I was like, that kind of looks like Leroy. It kind of looks like his dad. But he's got yellow eyes and his skin's like all like blotched up or something like that. Will gives like a muffled scream. And then the figure in a hoarse voice is like, y'all burn too. And Leroy must hear something because he just drops the kit, runs down to the stream, and Will's like shrieking for help. Leroy gets to him. He's finally able to have his head above the water. So Leroy pulls him up, and Will's like coughing out water. And he's like, it pulled me under. It came up out of water. And he's like, what, son? He's like, what is it? And he's like, breathe. He's like, what did? And Will's like gasping. He's like, it was you. You were all burnt like that picture of you after the war when you went down in that plane. He's like, son, you got to relax. You're not making any sense. He's like, it's the truth. And he's like, calm down. And then he sees the bruises on Will's wrist from getting grabbed. He's like, son, what the hell? And he's like shocked. And Will's like, there's something here in Derry, something bad. And then he kind of freezes, looks over like Leroy's shoulder. Leroy turns. There's a red balloon floating over the stream. And they both just stare at it. So it's just like, oh crap. Chief Bowers is sitting smoking in his office, listening to radio about like missiles and stuff. Kern knocks on the door, says he has a visitor. So it's Charlotte. So she must have told him about the cemetery stuff, and he's like, no details, no description. He's like, that's not a lot to go on. She's like, they're kids. They got scared and they ran. He's like, all right, we'll look into it. Is there anything else, Mrs.? And she's like, Hanlon. And she's like, I don't mean to be presumptuous, Chief Bowers, but if there's someone out there still accosting children, isn't it a possibility you have an innocent man in your jail? He's like, you talking about Hank Grogan? Not a chance, not a chance. We questioned him, caught him in a lie. That man has no alibi. And she's like, has he been able to consult an attorney? And he's like, Mrs. Hanlon, this isn't the South. He and his family have had regular contact with the public defender's office. And she's like, I didn't mean to offend you, sir. I'm sorry. She's like, you can imagine where I come from, what I'm used to. Another pause. And she's like, may I speak with him, please? And he's like, you're neither counsel nor family, so no. Now, if you'll excuse me. And she's like, thank you for your time. She clears her throat and gets up and walks out. After she's gone, the chief like looks up at her leaving. And he probably knows that, that she's going to mean trouble for him. Outside, Char goes to a phone booth. She looks up, she finds Hank's number. She goes there, she visits, talks with Hank's mom. Ronnie's like there, and then she says she doesn't understand, or Hank's mom doesn't understand what she wants. Char says her boy Will is a friend of her granddaughter's, and she's like, he told me the situation with their son, and I thought I'd check in. And her mom's like, Hank's mom's like, you a lawyer? And she's like, no ma'am, but I was active in the movement down south. Did my bit helping other colored folks who got forced into false confessions. If that's the case with your son, I'd like to see if I could help him too. So Hank's mom's like, that's kind of you, but I don't see it'll do much good. Yeah, I thought he was in his room. Turns out someone saw him out walking, and Char's like, doesn't mean he hurt anybody. And she's like, of course not. My Hank wouldn't hurt a fly, especially not no kids. And Char's like, so if he wasn't at the theater and he wasn't home, where else could he have been? And Hank's mom's like, the only one who knows where my son was that night, other than himself, is God, and neither of them is talking. So then we see Halloran and his buddies are working on their like hangout shack. They have like a fridge full of beer, like piano, sofa, and then Dick goes like put some tools in a Jeep, and he gets a vision with like screeching noises, lots of flashes. There's like a sink with blood, maybe someone in a bathroom, and just person in the woods. There's an elderly woman, says his name with like a raspy voice, and then he sees her in the woods, like in front of him. And so she was like in his vision, but now it's like she's standing there, and she's like, Dick, baby, she's like, mind me now. You watch yourself, you hear? Keep that lid on tight. So I don't know if it's his mom or his grandma. And then a car drives up, honks the horn, snaps him out of it. It's Hanlon. This is Leroy. He's like, they said I'd find you out here. So Dick like chuckles. He's like, well, here I am. And he's like, thanks again for that home-cooked meal. Best sleep I had since I stumbled out of a cat house. So Leroy's like, say, you heard anything from General Shaw or Colonel Fuller? He's like, I was wondering when we were going up again. Dick's like, oh no, that's above my pay grade. And Leroy's like, I hear you, but you know that Operation Precept, Shaw made it sound like a real priority. And Dick's like, one brother to another? Maybe don't be so eager to put yourself in the line of fire on this one. And Leroy's like, what are you trying to say? Dick's like, the colonel was kind enough to lend us this old requisition shed to use at and for our leisure. We're just, setting up inside. You want to help us out? But, so he's basically avoiding Leroy's question. So he like kind of walks past him, but Leroy grabs his arm like hard. And then Dick just like gives him a look, and Leroy lets go. He's like, listen, I went fishing today with my son, and I went back to the car to get more bait. Something attacked him. And Dick's like, Jesus. He's like, I'm sorry. You all right? But it's like weird he asks if he's all right, not if his son's all right. But Leroy's like, when I asked him what, he said, and he takes like a deep breath. He's like, he said it was me, all burnt up and charred, like I crawled out of a plane crash. And I came up out of the water and tried to pull him under. So Dick's like, you believe him? And he just kind of shrugs. He's like, the boy's got bruises and cuts like an animal scratched them all up. He looked at me and he said, Dad, there's something bad here in Derry. Halloran. It's like, what the hell are we actually looking for? So Dick like sighs. And he's like, huh? He's like, I know we're trying to develop some poop, Russia too. It's like, what did something go missing? A machine that fudges with your head? It's like, what is it? Dick's like looking almost scared, and Leroy shouts like, answer me. And Dick like shouts back, he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know what the hell it is. Hell, I'm not sure I want to know. He's like, look, I do what I'm told when I'm told, just like you. And he's like, I'm sorry about your son. And he like walks away. Then we see Will's talking to Lily, Ronnie, and Rich. They're at the hangout tower, which is weird because I thought he's supposed to just go, straight to school and home. And he's like, I used to have nightmares as a kid about my dad going down in a plane like he did in Korea. It scared me more than anything else in the world. He's like, how did it know that? It could have killed me way before my dad got to me. It can probably kill any one of us anytime it wants to, unless, and Ronnie's like, unless what? So Will's like, what if it doesn't want to kill us? Not yet, anyways. What if it's just trying to scare us, like Lily said? And Rich is like, why would it want to scare us when it, killed the others? And Lily's like, we don't actually know Maddie's dead, not for sure. But he did tell me that he's been seeing weird stuff for a while before he disappears. And Ronnie's like, Phil and Teddy said the same thing. And then Will's like, oh man. He's like, I hate being right. And Lily's like, what? And Will's said, like, adrenaline, cortisol. They're called the fear hormones. When you get scared, not just you, like any mammal, your adrenaline gland secretes them into your bloodstream, which some predators like the taste of. So they'll stalk and scare their prey until they smell just right. Then, and Rich is like, no. You're saying it wants to eat us? Will's like, it's just a theory. And Rich is like, it's a horrible theory. And Will's like, well, it fits the facts. Ronnie's like, okay, let's just, for the moment, assume that you're right. And Rich is like, no, I don't want to assume that. Ronnie's like, but if he is, what are we supposed to do? I mean, it's not like we can just stop ourselves from being scared. And Lily's like, guys, what if we could? So later, Lily opens up a little tin with some like pills in there. They're so after school. And Ronnie is like, how did you get them? And Lily's like, I swiped them from my mom's compact. I got one for each of us. And Will's like, what does it do? Lily's like, whenever she's really nervous about stuff like bills or, me, she just sticks one under her tongue. She says they make all her fears and troubles melt away like magic. She calls it Mommy's Little Helper. Rich is like, that sounds pretty good. And Will's like, well, I guess the second something weird starts to happen, we take it and Ronnie's like, hope for the best. So there's a movie in class about like worms, parasitic worms affecting like snails and stuff. Because like it's gross. You see like these snails and it once they're infected, like their eye stalks like get like all like start like getting thick and pulsing and stuff. Marge is kind of getting grossed out, and then the mean girl kind of gets her attention and motions to Lily, who's like sitting in front of Marge. So Marge taps Lily on the shoulder. She's like, hey, I've been thinking about what a poop I've been lately. So it's like, okay, what's her angle here? But Marge's like, I was wondering if, I don't know, do you want to go to lunch with me today? Just me and you? Like, I miss you. And Lily's like, that'd be swell. And Marge's like, peachy, can't wait. So it's like, is this some sort of setup? But when Lily turns around, Marge is like, kind of like, when Lily turns back to the screen, Marge's face like falls. And then she looks over at the mean girl and nods. So they're doing something here. Char goes back to the police station. There's some guy outside watched her, and I don't know if it was what's his name, Russo? At first I was like, is this one of the other officers? So he sees her goes into the police station. And so inside she's talking to some guy. He's like, you family? She's like, no, but I have a letter here signed by his mother granting permission to visit with her son. And he looks at it. He's like, yeah, you'll have to wait for the chief. And she's like, and when will he be in? And the guy's like, hard to say. And she's like, that's not good enough. He's like, listen, lady, I suggest that you take it on the arches before you find yourself in a cell right next to him. And she's like, my name is not Lady, it's Charlotte Hanlon. And that may not mean much to you right now, but it will when you see all the scary poop I can do with a telephone. And he's like, excuse me? And she's like, no, I don't think I will. In fact, if you don't let me see Hank Grogan right now, by tomorrow morning, I'll have MLK, JFK, RFK, and a whole bunch of other FKs breathing down your neck, along with a bus full of freedom riders after another from here to the turnpike singing "We Shall Overcome" in the streets until you have to call the world's largest cowcatcher to clear them. Now, are you going to let me see the man, or do I need to make a call? So he like stares at her, And she holds out the letter to him, and he takes it. So talking to Hank, he's like, "Forgive me, Mrs. Hanlon, but you don't know my situation." She's like, "I know the cops locked you up without a shred of hard evidence. I spoke with the public defender's office and asked some questions. Turns out they charge you without a bail hearing, which is your legal right." He's like, "Public defenders ain't saying nothing about that." And she's like, "We'll worry about him later. Right now, we need to file papers citing prejudicial treatment, show discrimination, which should be easy to do in your case. It'll allow you to skip bail altogether and go on house arrest while you wait for trial." And he's like, "House arrest?" And she's like, "Mm-hmm." He's like, "Are you saying I don't got to go to Shawshank?" She's like, "The papers take a minute to process, and it sounds like they're busting you out tomorrow. So you may have to spend a few days there. But the fact of the matter is, your right to due process was violated. Whatever you did or didn't do, you're going to be going home, at least for now. That's a promise." He's like, "Thank you." She's like, "But at some point, Mr. Grogan, you have to go on record with the truth." He's like, "The truth? The truth is, I ain't do nothing to those kids. I told the police about it." He like yells it. And she's like, "It doesn't change the fact that you weren't where you claimed to be that night." He like shakes his head. And she's like, "Where were you, really?" He like doesn't say anything. And she's like, "You realize that answer could set you free." Doesn't say anything. He's like, "Whatever you were doing can't possibly compare to what you were being accused of." Doesn't say anything. And she's like, "Do you want your daughter to go without a father? Do you want your mama to mourn her son?" He's like, "You think I want that? You think I want that?" And he like pounds the table. He's like, "Man, y'all don't understand." And she's like, "All right, so tell me, please. I think you know by now I'm on your side." And he's like, I was with a woman." And she's like, "A married woman?" And he's like, "Not just married." And she whispered, "A white woman?" He's like, "It just happened." And she's like, "It just happened." He's like, "Look, if anybody finds out, I won't be heading to Shawshank. They'll just find the nearest tree, not to mention what her husband would do to her. Now, if there's a way out without anyone getting hurt," he's like, I'll take it. I might need some help finding it." So then this officer, Fuller, he tells General Francis, whatever, that they check the areas, the Indian woman told him to stay away from. Like, either she's telling the truth or sending us on a wild goose chase, but there's nothing there. And so General, what's his name, Francis Shaw, I think, he's like, "Of course there's nothing there. She's a smart woman. And now we've confirmed her suspicions. Believe me, Colonel, these people take their obligations very seriously. And whatever comes next, it's not going to be a cease and desist letter. Not that it matters, because the cycle will be over soon, and the weapon will have gone to ground." So he sighs, and Fuller's like, "Maybe it's time to begin cleanup, sir." And then Shaw, General, he looks at a file behind his, opens up this file. It's like behind his desk. He sets it in front of him. There's a picture of like Rose's nephew and others outside the fence. He's like, "How often are those kids out there watching the base?" And the colonel's like, "The kids from Indian Marsh?" He's like, "I don't know, every couple of days." He's like, "Sir, they may be curious, but they know to stay on their side of the fence." And General's like, "Maybe it's time we open the gate, invite them in." So at school, at lunch, Marge asks Lily how things are with her new friends, and Lily looks over at them. She's like, "What do you mean?" And Marge's like, I don't know. I guess I'm just curious. Like, what's Ronnie Grogan like? People talk." Lily's like, "If you invited me to gossip, I'm not." And Marge's like, "Lily, no. I guess I don't know how to talk to you anymore. Everything's changed so much since you got back from, And she sighs. She's like, "Look, we've been best friends since first grade. Forget the patty cakes. I don't want to lose you. Can we just start over, please?" And Lily's like, "I'd like that." And then this boy comes up, and he says hi to Marge, and he kind of lingers. He says hi to Lily, and then he walks away. And Marge's like, "Oh my gosh, did you see the way Tim Flanagan just looked at you? You should talk to him." Lily's like smiling. She's like, "What? No way." And Marge's like, "He's totally sweet on you." He's like, "Come on, at least say hi after everything." And she did say hi. But Marge's like, "After everything you've been through this year, you deserve it." And Lily's like, "Well, I should at least freshen up first." And then she looks over at him, and he waves again, which is just kind of weird. Lily giggles. She's like, "Okay, I'll be right back." And then she gets up and leaves. Marge sighs because she knows she's a piece of crap. She's setting up her supposed best friend. The mean girls like watch her walk by, They watch Lily walk by, and then they get up and go to Marge. Ronnie, Will, and Rich see them go over, and they ask, the mean girls ask Marge, did she go for it? And Marge is like, I think so. She's freshening up. So the mean girl, she's like, good, because it's all set. The second she goes over to him, he's going to embarrass her in front of the whole school. And she chuckles. And mean girl, too, is like, it's going to be so boss. And Marge chuckles, yeah, real boss. And mean girl one's like, don't chicken out now, Truman. Get in there before she changes her mind. So it's like, do kids really get off on being this mean? It's like, are you just so incredibly evil? You're cruel? And the answer, sadly, is yes. So Marge hurries to the bathroom. She walks in. She's like, what's the holdup? And Lily's like, I have a zit. And Marge looks at it. She's like, you can barely see it. And she's like, let me touch you up before you go back out. You'll be drop dead. And Lily's like, okay, let me pee first. I'm nervous. So she goes in the stall. She's sitting. She's like, I can't believe Tim likes me. And she giggles. Marge breathes deeply. And she looks at herself in the mirror. And then she's like, Lils? And she's like, yeah? Marge's like, I need to tell you something. And Lily's like, what? And Marge sheds a tear. She's like, well, the truth is, and there's squelching crack in her head, and she groans. And Lily's like, Marge? I was like, are you okay? And she looks in the mirror and she whispers, what? And there's veins in her eyes, more growing. And her eye gets pushed out a little bit, and she groans again and she screams. And Lily's like, Marge, what's wrong? There's more crackling squelch, and her glasses fall to the floor. She's like, my eyes. And she lowers her hand, and her eyes are bleeding and extending out. So it's just like the snails in the movie, the infected and parasitic worms. So there's just growing eye stalks, and they're just pulsing and thick. And Lily gets up. She calls her name. Lily reaches for the stall door. She stops, and she goes to get her pill. And she's like, don't look at it. Close your eyes. And then she accidentally drops the pill in the toilet. So Marge is screaming, and she runs out in the hall. And she's calling out for help. She ends up in a shop class, and it's she can barely see. Her vision's kind of blurry, whatever. But she grabs this tool and starts chopping at her eye, the eye stalk or whatever. And then she sees this vertical electric saw. So she hits the button, turns it on, and it's so gross. She has kind of gun and toes and kind of lean over, and she starts cutting the eye stalks, the sprouts. Lily opens the door. She screams out her name. She's like, Marge, there's lots of blood. The eye stalks get cut, and Lily runs to her and pulls her away. She yells for her to stop, and she's screaming. She's covered in blood. And then Marge grabbed a pick, or I forget what it's called. It's almost like a chisel or something like that. And she's about to try stabbing her eyes. Lily yells at her. She's like, stop, let go. Then of course a bunch of kids run in, bust open the door. Lily's on top of her, and then she managed to get the chisel pick thing away from her, and she's holding it up. Marge is just wailing. She's covered in blood, and Lily looks at him. She drops the tool, and she starts saying that she's I didn't. And Will and Rich are there in the front, and it's almost they're not sure what to think. I mean, obviously they got to know something's up, but it's it looks like Lily was attacking her, and she's all bloody. It's what is going to happen? Is she going to get straight locked up? Then it cuts you Charlotte dicing cherry tomatoes, which looks too much like Marge's bloody eyes. Leroy comes home. He's in uniform. He asks Char, he's what are we doing in town today? And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, Polly said that he saw you walking to the police station. So that's the guy that must have seen her. And she just looks at him. He's like, I can see the wheels turning, so why don't you just tell me, Char? And she's like, same way you tell me what happens at that base? He's like, that's a security issue. It's like, what is this? It's like, the man that got arrested at the movie theater? And she's like, a black man who's arrested for murder, he swears he didn't commit. And his daughter is friends with our son. He's like, his daughter? And it's doesn't he realize this is the girl that they're talking about? I don't know if he made that connection. And he's like, don't be looking for trouble. And she's like, there's going to be trouble anywhere we go. It's that's a country you swore your life to defend. I'm just making it worth defending. And Lyra's like, you swore to me that you wouldn't start up here. It's like, I can't have you getting arrested again, Char. Not now. It's like, what I'm doing here is too important. So I I just need you to trust me. Just trust me and don't stir the pot. It's like, please just promise me that. Please. And she's like, you won't have to worry about me. And they like kind of look at each other for a bit, and he walks out. He's probably not fully like believing her. But it's like what he's doing is so important. It's like he doesn't even know what he's doing. So then it's nighttime. Will's lying in bed, and he's like closes his eye, kind of rolls over. But then he has a flashback to the river with the thing that looks like his dad grabbing him. So he gets up, he goes to the telescope, and he's got the lights on. He's sleeping with the lights on. Probably he's still kind of freaked out. Can't really focus on anything. He's trying to look in the telescope, can't really see. So then he lowers it down, and he sees like a guy like walking his dog, and then this is kind of freaky. Pennywise is kind of like hiding behind a tree. So Will like screams and he like jumps back, and Leroy gets up, runs in the room, finds Will cowering on the floor. He's like, "What happened?" Will's like, I couldn't sleep. I went to the telescope and there was somebody staring at me. So Leroy rushes to the window, doesn't see anyone. Charlotte comes in, and is like, "What's wrong?" And this is part that's annoying. He's like, "See what you did? Someone's watching the house." And I was like, "Oh, brother." So he goes outside, goes in the middle of the street, has like a fire poker in his hands. He yells, "Who's out here? Huh?" He's like, "Show yourself." So now he's starting to sound like a crazy man, which is not good. Other houses start turning their lights on. Dogs are barking in the distance. And he goes back towards the house, but then he hears something. He kind of walks to a tree, sees another big red balloon like stuck in the branches. So come on, dude. You got to know something's up. Next day, he storms into General Shaw's office. Secretary's like, try stopping him. He's like, "What the hell do you have us chasing?" So General gives him a look. Then he takes him to this observation room of interrogation room. And they got the Rose's nephew there. And he's like, "We caught him and his friends scoping out the base, trying to get a peek over the fence, as it were." And then Halloran walks in the room. And Leroy's like, "What's he doing here?" So Shaw's like, "Our young Indian friend, Taniel is his name. He knows the location of exactly what we're looking for, but he refuses to answer our question. So Airman Halloran is going to get them for us." So inside Dick's like, "They're watching over there." He's like, "What they want me to do to you is not going to be pleasant. So why don't you just tell them what they want to know? Save us both a whole lot of pain." The kid kind of nods. He's like, "Okay." And he motions Dick to get closer, spits in his face. Halloran chuckles. He's like, "Oh, Taniel." He's like, "God, I am so sorry about this." He puts like 3 fingers his temple and like on his forehead, and there's like a faint like droning warble. He like breathes kind of shakily, lets out a little groan. Taniel's like staring at him. He's like, what are you doing? Leroy doesn't know what's going on, and Taniel's like just confused. Then he starts feeling something, and his face like scrunches, and his hand like claw grips at the edge of the table. His other arm's like cuffed to the chairs. He's like starts like moving it, and then he starts like grunting, and Dick moves like his hand like over his face, and then Taniel's head jerks back. He starts screaming, and then there's like sudden silence, and the room goes black. And then Dick lowers his hand, and it's like there's some lights that turn on behind him. You hear like some giggling in the background. Some voice is like, "Happy birthday, Taniel." And then like the lights behind him are actually doors. So there's like a bunch of doors with like a bright light behind a door. So you just see the outline of the light. And there's a whole bunch of them like all in a big circle around him. So then one door opens up, so Dick walks towards it. There's really bright light inside. He sees Taniel as a kid like playing in his room, like with army soldiers on the floor. So Auntie Rose comes in, and she's like, "You know the story about the monster in the Western Wood?" And young Taniel's like, "The Galoo?" I was like, "All the kids know the story. The elders made us memorize it when we were like 7. And Rose is like, "Well, some of our stories are meant to teach us lessons, and some of our stories are real." And Tanya's like, "So you're telling me that the Galoo is real?" So she like sits on the floor, like takes his hand, and then Dick kind of like crouches to listen. So Rose is like, "Tell me the story. I need to know that you remember how all this began." So he's like, "Okay." So he's like, "Millions of years ago, before the time of the first people, an evil spirit was cast down from the darkest part of the night sky, bound inside of a falling star." And we see it like crash down into the pit where Pennywise, underground, where that's like his home. So Taniel's like, "But when the star struck the earth, it broke open and the spirit was set free. It roamed the woods for many snows and countless moons until the creation of our first ancestors. The star that carried the monster had been its cage, but the stone it was made from still held power. Our wisest took a shard from the star and carved it into a weapon, it's like a blade, to protect our people from the monster. And then the flashback shows this like moose with like glowing eyes and like stuff hanging off its antlers, whatever. And he's like, which we named the Galoo. We kept the dagger close and stayed away from the western woods. As years went by, the legend of Galoo was passed on from generation to generation. We lived in a balance with the monster by staying outside of its reach and never hunting in its territory. Until one day, the settlers arrived. We warned them of the danger of the western wood, but they chose to ignore us. They hunted the woods, and just as we had warned them, they were hunted. The Galoo fed on them and grew stronger and more powerful. So we see like lots of dead bodies, including like holy men and stuff like on the ground. The monster would soon be able to hunt outside the western wood. The village's great war chief was called to the council by the clan mothers. The creature had grown too powerful. A single dagger could no longer protect all the villages. To save our people, the decision was made. They would have to leave. But the chief's daughter, I think her name was Nekani, did not want to leave our land. She believed there was another path. So she took the dagger and she journeyed past the great dead wood with her friends at her side. Finally arriving at the western wood, they entered the woods, seeking the cave where the Galoo crashed, and to gather more of the sacred stone. When the chief realized that her daughter and the dagger were missing, she formed a search party to bring them both back. But without the dagger, they had nothing to protect them from the Galoo. So the monster showed itself to them. So you see like a big moose with like glowing eyes, and in a shape that they feared most. But then it's like a white-haired zombie or something like that. And then there's like another one. So there's a moose and like these zombies. Moose impales like one of the, whatever, like from behind. Another like gets it in the back of the head, like just gets stabbed. So Tanya's like, it separated the war party one by one. And before she knew it, the chief found herself alone. So we see she like hears something. She whips around and there's like a white holy man, and he comes closer and she shoots like an arrow in the shoulder. He like smiles and growls. So she starts running. He walks after her. She prepares to shoot again, and the holy man starts like violently grow like kind of like 4 times larger. So she aims another arrow. She shoots it as it charges, and Daniel continues. He's like, the chief's only hope was in her daughter's hand. The holy man. He like pulls out the arrow. He walks towards the chief, and she kind of like scoots back. He's like, prepare to meet thy God. But like some smoky, like swirly energy like pulses up from behind him. So Tanya's like, even the chief, the great warrior, was no match for the Galoo. So she's like lifted up, and the Galoo's like chest opens up, and there's like a demon baby inside, and she like screams, and then like her daughter with the dagger hears her scream, so she starts running. Meanwhile, the baby like stabs the chief with this little spear, and the Galoo, like you see like rows of teeth. It's like about to chomp on her, but then a daughter arrives. Creature scurries away, but it was too late. The chief's spirit was already slipping away, and she went to be with her ancestors. So then there's like a burial in the woods or whatever. And though the daughter's tears would not stop flowing, her people were still in danger. She knew what she had to do. Fight for them, just like her mother always had. So she took the dagger and braved the western wood one last time. So they found a cave. They broke off shards of the ancient star. The Galoo arrived. A plan was formed, not to kill it, but to cage it. They would use the shards of its old bindings, the only thing the Galoo feared, to keep our people safe again. The children circled the western wood, which had been the monster's hunting ground for so long, and they buried 13 sacred shards deep into the earth. Over each stone, they lit a fire to mark its place, a line the Galoo could not cross. Our people made a sacred promise to guard the pillars and to keep their places secret so that the monster that's trapped inside would never break free. Our people would be safe forever. So then Rose is like, well done, Daniel. Now you're part of, and then her eye kind of like shuts, like her left eye shuts and like twitches a bit, and she's like frozen. And he's like, are you okay? And then there's like a slow clap starts up. Dick's like, well done, Daniel. Great story. So tell me, where are they now? The pillars. How do I find them? He's like, you can tell me. Come on. And young Daniel stands up. walks over to the closet hall door or something like that, opens it, super bright light. There's like wind howling. Now Taniel's like a kid, whatever, adult, not really adult, but he's how he is now. He points, he's like, through there, follow the tunnels under the old well, and you'll find the pillars. Then there's like another, this like old house with like yellow sunflowers. So I was like, wait, that looks familiar. So I mean, what do I know? I think it's, I looked it up. I was like, what was in it? It's a Neibolt Street house. So that's where the losers confront their fears in the It Part 1. It's like the way that they get into Pennywise's underground lair, where they like climb down. It wasn't through the chimney or something like that. But so I think that's the whole thing with the sunflowers. There's something about sunflowers. I know that's like a big thing in a lot of Stephen King books. So I think they have to go to that house. But it's like, has that house always been dilapidated? Whatever, like that. So yeah, there's some freaky moments in this episode. That's the end of the episode. So, man, good stuff. All right, now Adventure Time, Fionna and Cake, Season 2, Episode 5, The Butterfly and the River. I'm just laughing because my daughter used to say, butterfly, whenever she say butterfly, whatever. It starts off, we see Marshall's mom's working at her desk. Marshall's, as a kid, is like, he's just kind of moving his chair like back and forth. And she gets up and talks to him with a smile. She's like, no, Marshall, we are working now. He's like, sorry, Mom. Then later he's like doing math homework. And then the numbers start changing. He's like, starts drawing a face and like the numbers getting thick. She's like doodling, draws like this big giant snake on the right side of the page. Mom sees like, no, oh, no. And she rips the paper in half. Then later he's just staring at like a new page of work. He's like drumming his finger, as the clock's like ticking. Then he starts like tapping both hands rhythmically. The mom scoots her seat back, and with a smile, she like pushes him out of her office. And he seems to feel bad, so he's like walking outside with his head down. The whole city is like gray. And he walks past like city gardens, and he hears like a woman singing, playing piano. So he stops and he goes to the park. We see that woman that he tripped over at the store. So she's there. She's an ice cream vendor. So I totally forgot, and we saw it because when she was ice cream, I was like, oh wait, the ice cream vendor. So she's supposed to be like the ice queen. She's supposed to be like the gender swapped ice king, which this is where it gets confused because we have Simon and we have the ice king, but it's not Simon. And the fact that she looks like Marceline is weird. So I'm pretty sure that's who this is. So we saw her, I think it was like in the first episode, season 1, episode 1, I think. And so Marshall sees her, and there's like a bunch of cats around, and she has this little keyboard. She's got the little crown on her head, and then he puts some money down, and he asks for 2 scoops of double fudge delight. So she hands it to him, but the 2 scoops fall like onto the ground. One like hits his shoe, and he's like, because it like hits his shoe, and she's like, no worries, I'll make you another. And he's like, no. He's like, I made a mess, and he's like kind of sweating, like bows his head. And he's like, I apologize for the inconvenience. So it's probably like his mom like drilled it into his head, you can't make a mess, it's not acceptable or whatever. So he feels like really bad about it. And she like looks at him. She reaches in, grabs another double scoop, but then just like wipes it, like dabs it on her white shirt and makes, more of a mess. And he like gasps. And she's like, mess is welcome here. So then he like smiles and he looks at her keyboard and she like hands it to him. She's like, knock yourself out. So he starts playing like melodically, whatever, and she starts like tapping onto like the ice cream cart, and then someone wearing like a black hat is like watching them from the bushes. So it's like, wait, who's that? Fionna groans while sitting on Cake's kitchen floor, and she's like, I slept terribly. So Cake's like, you should have tried another dresser. So the kitchen is like full of dressers, like all over the place, like knocked over and stuff like that. And she's even like using a knocked over one as like a table to serve coffee and Pop-Tarts. Then Cake yells, she's like, come and get it, Huntress. And Huntress like kicks open the door. She has like some clothes on, like stitched together. And it looks like she has like a mask on now. So Fionna approves. She's like, nice. She's like, where'd you get the fabric? But, she doesn't answer. And she sees a pile of something on a dresser, like jumps over, starts like gobbling it. I don't know what it was, like something pink. Yeah. Cake's like, so what's the game plan today, Fee? And Fiona's like, well, I lost the fundraiser venue, but I can still fix it. And Cake's like, and you got kicked out of your place. She's like, I can fix that too. just later, after meeting up with Flame. Cake's like, ugh. And Fiona's like, but first, we have to help Huntress. It's like, what was that heart thing you were looking for? And she's like, the heart of the forest. And Cake's like, yeah, but what is that? And she's like, it's the source of the green magic and also a portal. And Fiona's like, that's how you got here? And Huntress like, I need to find the heart of this world to get back. Do you have any ancient gnarly bush or dark foreboding forest? And Fiona's like, not really, but I do know about the oldest tree in the city. And Huntress' eyes go wide as she grabs a knife. She points at Fiona. Take me there now. So Huntress is a little harsh. It's like not really appreciative of everything that they're doing. Marshall's like strumming guitar while Gary's cooking. So they're at Gary's place. Kitchen area is kind of small. And Marshall asks if he's in the way. And Gary's like, oh, no, not at all. And he's like, I'm just so hopped up on bacon, I didn't even notice. Marshall starts singing, like, my baby. And then the mixer starts whirring and like interrupts his like creativity or whatever. Gary shouts like, hey, is this too loud? Marshall's like, no. He like sets down the guitar. He's like, hey, do you need any help? And Gary hands him like a giant, it's like huge, like it looks like a giant chocolate bar. It's almost like as big as he is. He asks if he could like chop it. Like, so he cuts a piece like a bit, and then Gary wags his fingers. He's like, no. And Marshall's like, huh? He's like, this is nice, but could you make them into little squares? And Marshall's like, aren't you just going to melt them anyways? He's like, yes. So Marshall goes back to randomly chopping because it's like, why bother? He's just like, chick. Gary grabs a cutting board. He's like, actually, you know what? I'll just do it. And Marshall's like, sorry. He's like, no worries. He's like, why don't you help me fold some more napkin swans? My parents do it for the mints at the hotel. And he's like, you haven't met my folks yet. And Marshall kind of blushes. I mean, I'd like to someday. And Gary's like, well, I'm going over to their place tonight. You should come. And Marshall's like, okay. And Gary's like, okay. Fiona's wearing a long red dress. So she's with Cake and Huntress. They walk down an alley, and Fiona's like, here we are. So the tree looks like Finn and Jake's like treehouse place. And Huntress stares at it, and she pulls out the kitchen knife up to the tree. And Fiona's like, hey, don't you know trees can scream? So she holds up her left arm, slices off her hand. And Fiona's like seizes, pauses, and she's like screams. And Cake looks down at the hand. It's like, girl. Huntress picks it up. It's like, you're lucky to witness this. And Fiona's like, cutting off your dang hand? And she's like, behold. And she sets the hand down on the ground, like fingers sticking up. Huntress looks at it. And she's like, that was supposed to connect to the heart. And then Cake's phone buzzes. She's like, yellow. She hands the phone over to Fiona. And she's like, Marshall. He's like, I'm freaking out, Fiona. He's like, can we meet by the fountain? And she's like, I kind of got a lot going on today, but I can make time. He's like, I'll be there all day. So the call ends, phone buzzes like right away. It's a text from Gary. And it says, Cake, this is Gary. Tell Fiona to meet me at, what was it, Butler's Buttery Buns? I forget what it was, something Buttery Buns. In 16 minutes. Love, Gary. P.S. This is from Gary. So Cake and Huntress are still staring at her hand. Fiona whispers, it's like, Cake, keep an eye on Huntress so she doesn't, I'll be back as soon as I can. So she meets Gary, and she's like, why are we meeting, here? Because I think that's where he quit or whatever, got fired. So he says he panicked. He knows that they won't run into Marshall there. And Fiona's like, are you guys okay? And then cut to like Fiona meeting Marshall at the park at the fountain. And he says he doesn't know, because I guess she must ask him if they're okay. He says he doesn't know, it all happened so fast. So it's cutting back and forth between the two meetings. So Gary mentions he just blurted out an invitation. Marshall says he just agreed. Gary says, he wonders what Marshall is going to think about, his childhood at home, because Marshall grew up in a penthouse. Marshall says that he's never met anyone's parents before. And then we see that mysterious hat person lurking behind him. I don't know if it's the same person, because before Marshall was a kid. So, and he has like long hair and like a beard, and he's carrying like a smiley face heart balloon that's like covering his face. So it's like, is there a disguise on it? Because it almost looks like a beard, and it's like, is it like fake? Then Marshall kind of noticed him for a second. So I was kind of wondering, like, could that be his mom? Like, I don't know if she would actually do that. But then Fiona's like, if Gary's parents are anything like him, they'll love you. And she's like, why not bring them flowers if you're worried? And Fiona tells Gary that, it's a home-cooked dinner, so he's going to love it. And Gary's like, maybe you're right. Thanks. Marshall says thanks. And now we see that her red dress is torn from the back, and like the back half is gone. So I don't know when that happened. I mean, the only thing I can think, maybe Huntress ripped part of her clothes. So her clothes is, I think, made up of Fiona's closet that she just ripped up different parts and whatever. So Marshall gives her jacket to cover like her she's wearing like bike shorts or something under her dress, but I think he gave her jacket to cover herself. I don't know if maybe she didn't realize it. She says that, and she's like, oh, I have to pee so bad because she's been like drinking whatever coffee, iced coffee with both conversations. At the tree, Cake is reading a book on human bondage, and she closes it, and she's like, "Ooh," or something like that. Her cell phone buzzes, and it's like every time her cell phone buzzes, like her whole body shakes because I don't know where, she doesn't have pockets, but it's somewhere. So M. Cron texts. He's like, "I saw you on Cheers." He's like, "Kudos for standing up for yourself." And she's like, "Wow, it really is filmed live." So then there's a new text. He's like, "Hey, how about a redo of our date?" So she tosses the book and she gasps. She's like, "Leaf girl, any magic happening? I might have to bounce too." Hunter's like, "I can sense the taste of magic." So she licks her lips. She crouches. She picks up a leaf. There's like some like water pooled in it. She drinks the water from the leaf. Then she blows put the leaf by her mouth, so like blows, and it kind of like whistles. The note kind of resonates and there's this low rumble. And she's like, "Huh?" And then you see like a sunbeam shining on a tree, and she moves closer to the tree, and she blows the leaf again, and she kind of goes cross-eyed. And the tree shines with like this green light, it's kind of shimmery, and there's a rumble, and she's like, Cake's like, "Are you seeing this, Huntress?" Huntress like whistles now, and she reaches out towards the tree as Cake calls to her, and she like touches her back. So like Huntress is going to touch the tree. Cake is like going to touch Huntress's back, like, "Hey, are trying to get her attention." But then Huntress' shape starts to flow into the tree, and there's like this big bright white light. Fiona is walking, and she sees Flame around the corner, so she like kind of ducks and she peeks at him. He's on his cell phone, and she says to herself, she's like, "Let's keep this professional, girls." So is she talking to her boobs? Because she kind of, it's almost like she adjusts herself. I don't know. So she goes around the corner. She's like, "Hey." He's like, hey. He's like, "I've been trying to get you on the phone." And she's like, "Oh, shoot, it's busted." And he's like, "I had to change of plans. You're like, you mind if this is a working lunch?" Because he has a bag of food from OK Poke. And she's like, "That's how I usually lunch." So they walk. And it is weird. There's like some squirrels. And there's like a busted building. And there's like, a little hole. And the squirrels push like a pot, like with a plant, and it's like smashed in the ground, and they just kind of walk by it. I don't know what the point of that was. So she's in the middle talking. She's like, "And that's my plan to save the sweet spot. My friends are amazing, so I cannot mess this up." And Flame's like, "Well, I don't have any leads on a venue, but I've got hookups for the equipment." And she's like, "Is that okay that he's like, "Whatever contacts you have, use them. Do whatever it takes to make it happen." So he puts his hand on her shoulder, and then she looks at it, and she's like, "Thanks." He's like, "By the way, I passed by your old place. The Scarab really did a number on it." And he's like, "I moved into the towers there." So you see like some towers in the background. He's like, "It's not flashy. All my money goes into this place." So there's like Studio Mellow. Inside, he tells Fiona, he's like, "Make yourself at home." And he's like, "Hey, kid, I got your text. How's it going?" And the kid's like, "Bad. Everything's coming out trash." And he's like, "Oh, come on, man." He's like, "Can you give it one more shot?" And he's like, "Okay." So Fiona, like, she observes this interaction. She's like, he's so good with kids. And then the kid goes in the studio, starts like rapping or something like that. He sounds like an adult. Fiona's jaw like drops. I don't know what the point of this scene was, but yeah. Huntress lies in some sort of cavern. There's like some magical purplish greenish water like streaming next to her. I guess it's a river since the title. She had grown. She looks around. She sees like big caterpillar things crawling, like really, really big ones. And she's like, "This isn't that weird heart space." And then Cake groans. She's like, "Where are we?" Cake, she's merged onto Huntress's arm since it was she chopped off her hand or whatever. And she's like, ah. And Huntress totally calm. She's like, inconvenient. And Cake's like, inconvenient? And Huntress like, we must be inside the willow. Doesn't matter. We have to find my way home. And she's like, no, I'm supposed to be getting fresh with Emcron right now. And then it cuts to him sitting in this big, like, floating swan thing, like, on a lake. So Cake chomps onto this, like, outcropping, since she has no arms. And Huntress like, once we get the ooh, we can find a spell and fix this. So she, like, yanks Cake free from holding onto the whatever. They walk a little, and then there's what looks like his white window. And Cake's like, where do you think this goes? And Hunter's like, curious. So Cake reaches in and pulls both of them, because they're joint, so it pulls them in. There's like blackness, and then Huntress opens her eyes, and both of them are like molded onto the side of the tree. And their eyes are like the only thing that are like normal. Everything else is like wood. They can barely move, whatever. And so it's spinning in Jake's tree, and Hunter's gasped. She's like, we're in ooh. So she managed somehow to slide up the tree, like in the trunk, like inside of the tree house. And then she's like, tries pulling herself out of the trunk, but she can't. And then she slides down to a lower level, and it's like the bedroom. So it's like, okay, wait, is that Finn sitting on the bed? And Hunter's gasped. She's like, Finn. But it's really Fionna in her like original Finn outfit with like the socks and whatever, the rabbit ears. And she's like, huh? Is someone there? And then Cake stretches in front of her. She's like, yeah, me, Kick the cat. And it's adventure time, babe. And Fiona's like, yeah, and they both cheer. Then Huntress and Cake watch still in trunk. And Cake's like, oh, this is old Fionna world. So there's a flash of red outside. The tree changes like to the city, and then they're back. And Cake's like, when Simon lost his magic, everything got retconned by that glory wave. And Hunter's like, all that matters is that this tree isn't the heart of the forest. So she pushes back into the tree, and they fall through the like white window portal thing, whatever, into like the main cavern area. And Cake's like, ooh, child, let me out of this crazy tree. So then we see Gary and Marshall. They arrive at his parents' apartment. So Gary knocks like on the door. Marshall holds like a plant with like some flowers on it. It's like in a pot. Gary's parents are like half his size, and they're both kind of like little like round, and they both call it. They're like, Bubba, and they hug him. Marshall's like, Bubba, and Gary's like, sorry we're late. Like Marshall wanted to take 5 buses and double back 3 times to get here. So I guess his dad's name is Gordy. I think what it said. He's like, that sounds fun. They never said his mom's name unless I missed it. And she's like, come in. And Marshall, like, he's like, whoa, because there's lots of picture frames, cat knickknacks, like shelves are just loaded with picture frames. Walls are covered picture frames and everything. Gordy's like, so you're the Marshall Lee. And Mom's like, so handsome. And Gordy's like, woman, you already got 2 men. Let Gary have one. And Gary kind of like face palms. And Mom's like, I'm teasing. They know I'm teasing. And then Marshall hands over the plant. He's like, these are for you. And Mom's like, oh, wow, so fancy. And he's like, my mom made me take Ikebana classes as a kid. And Mom's like, oh, they're just lovely. Gordy clears his throat. He's like, Bubba, did you bring anything? And Gary's like, just some little old rhubarb crumble. And Mom's like, Nellie's favorite. Nellie, it's your favorite. So Nellie must be Gary's sister, but we don't see her at this point. And then Gordy's like, we're eating like royalty tonight. And Mom's like, remember how Bubba used to watch cooking shows all the time? He was so cute. Oh, honey, get the video. And Gary nervously is like, Marshall doesn't want to see that. But Marshall nods like, yeah, he does. So they hook up a camcorder TV. And there's a video of Gary, like, as a kid mixing, and then, like, brushing his sister's hair. And it's like, oh, here's when he fell asleep baking. And now he's playing the keyboard. And Marshall's like, I didn't know you played. And Gary's like, yeah, but, I've been busy. So parents say, Bubba says that he's a musician, so they'd love if he played something. Marshall sits at the keyboard. He's like, I haven't played keys in a while. He starts playing a song. I think he was playing, pretty sure it was a Cheers song. And he's like, oh, that's all I can remember. But he played some of it. He was like singing. Then it cuts back to Huntress and Cake. They're walking around. They're lost. Huntress thinks, she's like, oh, I think I remember this divot here. She sticks her head out, and it looks like the same old ooh again. But then there's a little Marceline vampire kid in the tree. and then the magic wave flashes. Marceline leaps out after a butterfly, turns into like a regular kid in the city, and it turns out it's Marshall as a kid. So he's sitting in he like landed in this puddle. And Mom comes out. She's on the phone. She's like, Marshall, no, you've ruined your shorts. So Huntress thinks that they're traveling through different periods of Cake's world, but only within this tree's lifetime. Then they see a butterfly in a spider web. There's this big spider, like, starts crawling towards it. Cake's like, well, I've seen this movie. If you ever travel through time, you just can't let the butterfly die. So she smashes the spider in the web. And she's like, that felt good. They go back in the tree. Huntress says that was a pass, so they're moving in the wrong direction. So she jumps into colorful stream, even though Cake's like, she's like, no, I don't do water. They slide down the stream. Cake screams. Then at the bottom, there's like, a little puddle, whatever, pond, whatever, I don't know. Huntress climbs out and walks towards a window and says, this is our exit. Goes through. Looks like everything is covered in webs. Giant butterfly monsters are, like, you see the shadows like overhead, like above the clouds. Then we see like baby Finn on the back of one, like stabs it in the head. Cake's like, oh, my claw. And then Peppermint Tank speaks through like a pendant thing around his neck that Willow is sentient. And Cake's like, what happened? And Peppermint is like, 1,000 years ago, an epidemic of those monstrous biter flies took over. By my calculation, it all started as a colony of just 5 in this very tree. And Cake thinks back to the spider, and she's like, poop. A bee snarls. Baby Finn pulls out like this giant pin, which is supposed to be like a sword. And Cake's like, why did I squish that spider? And Hunter's like, it's your nature. I say, all we can do is deal with it in the present, and at present, I thirst. She reaches her roots into the water, and she gasps. She's like, this tastes like the rain from the jaked up future. And she's like, this one ready? And Cake's like, hell no. She leaps into the stream. Another bright light. Then it cuts to Gary and Marshall. They're walking. Gary finally speaks. He's like, I'm sorry I dragged you along tonight. And Marshall's like, nah. He's like, your parents are great. He's like, they really care about you. Gary's like, but something's bothering you. And Marshall's like, I just been thinking about how it was when I was a kid. Adults say they care, then suddenly they ghost you. And Gary's like, huh? Your mom never stops calling you. Marshall takes Gary's hand. He's like, never mind. And then Gary like stops him. He's like, you don't have to hide stuff from me. And Marshall's like, even if it's about you? And Gary's like, of course. And Marshall's like I get why you're passionate about doing things a certain way, but sometimes when you get controlling about it, you remind me of my mother. And Gary's like, oh God. And Marshall's like, I'm not used to talking about what I want. And Gary's like, I express how I feel through baking. Perhaps, that could be done with music too. You're looking for new material anyways. And Marshall's like, yeah, maybe. And Gary's like, you can make one about how I'm basically your mom. He's like, okay, Bubba. And then they start smooching. Fiona says that she should check in with Cake. And then she's like, huh. There's a woman on the loudspeaker. All right, ladies, who's ready to clear this dump? Queenie's standing by 3 bulldozers. And she's like, what the heck? She's like, I thought we had until the end of the week. And Queenie's like, oh, yeah. And in her bullhorn, she's like, I freaking hate you. So then Fiona, she's like, okay, she's going to offer more money. She's like, $60K. And Queenie says something like that. But then she's like, 70. And she's like, and you have till Sunday. And she's like, shut her down, girls. So Fiona walks away proud. But then she realized she has to come up with $70,000 now. So then this weird looking dog is like following her. So then around a corner, she kind of like disappears. The dog stops and then stands up. It's like a dude in like wearing a dog costume. He's got like these like purple, like pink with purple diamond glasses, and he has a beard. So then she comes out, she rams her shoulder into him, and she raises her fist. She's like, why are you following me, punk? Then it cuts back to Cake and Huntress. They're still going down the stream. Cake asks her to cool it with the bass and sync stuff. And Huntress like, why wouldn't she want to be her full cat self? And she's like, because I'm not a house cat no more. So she starts stretching away and goes through a portal. And she's like, I'm home. And she's like, was it always this nasty? There's lots of garbage around. Marshall's mom comes out and says to, pull around to the side. And she calls out the Fifi. And it's Fiona in a suit. Cake's confused. And Fiona's like, I chased out the squatters, boss. And Mom's like, can't have all those elements around when we break ground for a new hotel. So then they head to the big limo. Fiona So Fifi looks up at where her old place was, and she's like, And then Cake in a tree is like, poor Fifi. Huntress pulls her back inside. They go down the stream, they land, and she's like, here. And Cake's like, are you for really real this time? And Huntress is like, As they go, and Cake's like, we're back. Now what? Huntress' hand is still there in the grass. Huntress blows like a whistle. The hand vibrates a little. Huntress reaches for it with her other arm, but then Cake's like, I got you. So she's like, stretches, because they're still in a tree. So she's like stretching, and it was kind of gross because like orange stuff starts like seeping out. So I was like, "What is that? Is that guts? Is that what's it? Not what is syrup? Not syrup. Whatever." She's like stretching out, and then she bites onto the hand, and then whoosh, they like disappear into the hand, and the hand falls over. Then there's this big, it kind of morphs into this big globby mess, like green globby, and Huntress is like reborn. And her hand, she looks at her hand, is like attached, and there's just like sort of like an orangish mark, like at a line where it was cut. And then she starts to call out for Cake, and then she throws up a glob, and like Cake's inside. And then a butterfly flies by, and then there's a few cocoons. Must have been, I think it was like 4 cocoons, because whatever they said, something about the 5 butterflies. That's what Peppermint Tank said. And so Cake smashes them out with like a branch. It's like, I saved and endangered the future. It's like, oh, and you leveled up. Because Huntress has like longer antlers now. She's like, huh, yeah, but that it wasn't the heart. Cake's like, I'm sorry, but all that bad future stuff is going to happen now, right? And Huntress is like, no, it won't. So I don't know if that means it won't. I mean, I don't know. Marsha's mom standing in her office, and someone's like, ma'am? And she's like, Damon, what have you found out about my boy? So it's the guy with the glasses dressed as a dog. It's like he's standing in the door, and it's like you can see Marceline's dad in there. So I don't know if it was a picture. I'm like confused because it's all this merging genders, whatever switch. So because she's like, he still refuses to answer my calls. And then the what's his name? Damon's like, Madam Abadir, we're not alone. So I was like, wait, is Marceline's dad out there? But no. So it's Fiona. And she walks in, and then you hear like Flame Prince's voice, says, do whatever it takes to make it happen. So she's probably going to ask Marsha's mom for the $70,000 or to invest in it or do something. And he's not going to be happy about that. Then it cuts to Candy Kingdom. Finally, we don't see it in all episodes. It's nighttime. They're like, Simon has the wish thing around his neck. They're standing around like Finn, like lying in bed. And he clears his throat, and he's like, demonic wishing eye. And then they all appear like this sort of like almost like a crayon type drawing thing. You see like some green little guy wearing like a gold crown and like this staff. Almost, I don't know if it's an 8 or infinity or just like something on there. He's like, hello, Simon. What do you like to wish for? And Simon's like, Finn is trapped in a poison coma. I wish to shake him out of it. And the guy's like, I don't know about that one, sis. And Marceline's like, please, wishy. And he's like, okay, I'll try. Deki Agari, he's like a new man. And he like points his staff thing at them, zaps them away. So then they're back. Finn's lying there. He has like a fake nose and glasses with like springy eyes, like Google eyes. And like one pops out, bong. And PB's like, useless. She takes the glasses off. Then Finn's beard like changes because it's like around his mouth there's nothing, but then he's like whoosh, it grows, and his face got older. And Simon screams out, "Wishy!" And that's the end of the episode. So these episodes are so weird. It's like the pacing, and I almost feel like, are they meant to be like continuous? But they're not. They don't just. It's just abrupt ending, but. Yeah, it feels like so much happened in this episode, and it's like just so weird, and it's so different than the first season. But I'm glad we have it because I'm enjoying it, even though it's so weird. So that is episode 5 of Fionna and Cake. And now the movie feature is Wicked for Good. All right, let's go straight to Rotten Tomato. So Rotten Tomato. I wonder what the first one was. I don't know if I should bother looking it up. Rotten Tomato critics give it a 70%. Popcorn meter is a 96%. What I will say about it, so here's the thing. When I saw it Wednesday, and I was really tired. I did not sleep well the night before, and then long day at work, blah blah blah. So when I saw it, it felt kind of long to me, and I don't think it was necessarily. Let's see, what was the running time? It just. So I rewatched the first one Saturday over the weekend. I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it one more time. Let's see, it's 137 minutes. Yeah, so it's like, it felt a little long to me. So I watched the first one, and I enjoyed the first one I saw in the theater. I was like really impressed. I was surprised. I didn't think I was going to really care for it that much. And my daughter really loves the musical, and she still hasn't seen the first movie. I don't know if she has or not, but she might see the second one because her friend's in town and wants to see it. So I don't know. We'll see if she sees it or not. But so because I have heard the soundtrack. I mentioned this before when she was a kid driving around. She'd want to listen to it and that. And so I enjoyed the first one. I can appreciate everything. I'm not a necessarily big Ariana Grande fan or Cynthia Erivo. I don't know what she's done before. I guess, let's see, known for her work on both stage and screen. So both of them, they did an amazing job, I think. Are they the best cast? I don't know, but they were great. And I still say Ariana Grande is Glinda. I mean, she's hilarious, and I feel from what I know of the character, the role, she like nailed it. That was perfect. So yeah, it was first movie was good. Second movie, I think for me, it just felt like, so this whole, the story, I think, if you come down to it, it's a little silly, but it's the nature of the story, where, the Wicked Witch is basically framed to be evil. She's not evil. She's trying to defy the wizard. It's really the wizard and Michelle Yeoh who are like the evil ones, locking away the animals and, all this stuff. When Elphaba, that's not how you say her name, is that? Because Elphaba. I don't know. I always want to say Elphaba. Like my daughter's like correcting me when we were talking about this movie. Elphaba. So she didn't want to do the wizard's bidding. So he changes the narrative, makes her out to be a bad guy type of thing. And this movie was supposed to take place, I think it was like 5 years later. So it's just, it's all kind of silly. It's just a big misunderstanding and stuff like that. But that's what the story is about. To me, it's kind of annoying because it's just, it's annoying because she's being framed or whatever, and people are just naive, but that's a reality in a lot of situations, right? So that's fine. The fact that it's a musical, and I think maybe I just wasn't in a mood for a musical because sometimes it's like, all right, here we go, town people brought to sing a song and everything, but again, that's the whole point of it. It is a musical. Oh, so let me back up and say, amazing visuals, performance, it's all great and everything like that. So if you like the first one, you're probably going to like this. Obviously, the popcorn meter, what did I say was, 90, 96. So people are going to enjoy this. But I just think for me, where I was at, just being tired and everything, I just really wasn't in the mood for it. So I can appreciate everything. And my attention kind of like, I feel like at some point I was starting to get tired, because I saw a 7 o'clock show. I was like, oh, old man Tony can't go to 7 o'clock movie. But then later it's like, okay, then I started perking up a bit and whatever. Oh, and I should also point out, I have pre-ordered the Steelbook for this movie. Because, and part of it is like, well, I got the first one, so I guess I kind of have to get the second one. So I didn't hate the movie or anything like that. I just didn't love it. But also, what I'll say is when I saw it, there's like a row of people, or a group of people next to me, and I don't know how old the girl was because I wasn't like staring at them, but she comes over to the mom because I think the mom was sitting next to me, and the little girl's like, oh, I liked it better than the first one. So I was like, okay, there you go. People that are more invested than I am, they enjoyed this. So I don't know. It just, something just feels, and maybe it's because
with the first one, it's like the magic. Like, oh, look at what they're doing. This is cool. And then the second one is like, okay, it's more of the same. Great. But it wasn't as special because you're already kind of used to it. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's the case. But the critics, they gave it a 70%. Let's see. The first one on Rotten Tomatoes, it's at 88%. And the popcorn meter is 95%. So, yeah, it's the same. Not that I want to say I'm siding with the critics, but it seemed like more critics. Let's see. Oh, I should also check. Let's see. 404 reviews. So the first one, out of 404 reviews, 88% were positive. Right now, as I record, we're at 224 reviews at a 70%. So it could still go up, it could still go down. But the popcorn meter is a 96% based off of 5,000 plus verified ratings. So people are enjoying this, and that's great. As far as the box office, so the budget, which I think this is surprising, is 150 million. That seems low for these big spectacular whatever movies. So if that's a 150% or 150 million, let's see, Universal's global efforts. They have 90 million budget compared to previous 150. Box office. Deadline Hollywood projected the film to gross between 112 and 115 million in its domestic opening, on par with the 112 million opening gross of the first one. So they're saying it's probably going to do about the same. Variety projects an opening weekend as high as 150 to 180 million. I think I saw that on Fandango, it's the best first day ticket selling whatever of 2025. So people as soon as tickets went on sale, they're buying tickets. I didn't buy day one. I forget when I did, and I don't use Fandango. So it made 30.8 million from preview showings. 6.1 million on Monday. There were Monday showings. 6.5 million on Wednesday. I went on Wednesday. 18.2 million on Thursdays. So they did a lot of early showings, which seems silly, but hey, get people excited and make it so people. If the theater sells out on the weekend, people can see it, and that's the important thing. It was also funny. Some of my students are like, "What did you watch Wicked 2?" He's like, "What you think?" I was like, "Well," they're like, "No." There's one student's like, "No, don't say that. I'm going to see it." They didn't want me to say anything bad about it. So the other thing, I aside from the movie feeling a little long, and parts of the story being okay. I think part of it is how it's a departure from the original Wizard of Oz kind of story. I'm not an uber Wizard of Oz super fan or anything like that, but I feel like I do know a bit of I know a little bit about the history. I never read the book. I always wanted to. When the Wonderful Wizard of Oz, whatever the comics that Eric Shanower and Scotty Young did, I think it was 2009. When those comics came out, because just with Scotty Young's style, it's just so amazing, and my daughter loved it. She thought it was so cool and everything. And we would read the comics. I would read the comics to her. That was part of instead of I can read you a story at night. How about I read you a comic? And I would do my best to try to do the voices and stuff like that. And with those comics, those were adapted from the original novels, and you find out who is the Tin Man and who is you get the backstories of these characters. So with that, if you're familiar with Wicked, and I won't mention specifics in case you're not familiar with the musical, and I don't know how the musical compares to the book. I'm curious about that. I was talking to someone. They're like, "Have you read the book?" So maybe I should listen to audio or something like that. But then this, I talked to my daughter about this. I was like, "So this character in the musical," and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's blah blah blah." And I was like, "And this character?" She's like, "Yeah." Blah. So that was the same. And there's two characters in particular that they've changed to fit with the story of the movie.
And again, that's fine. That's the creative choice or whatever for this telling of the Wizard of Oz, or whatever you want to call it. And that just, I don't like that. It just seems weird, but that's fine. And I don't think that that's why I kind of have a problem. I don't think it was that. I mean, maybe part of it is because I think it's like a nostalgia thing, reading those whatever comics, just, and that was like, I don't know if that was the first time really getting to Scotty Young's art. I don't know, because he's did other stuff. He did covers and stuff like that, because I remember I had like some up in the office, whatever. But yeah, it's just something all about it was just off a little bit for me. So I think it's more, it's me, not it's not you, it's me type of thing. So I'm sure people are going to enjoy it, and so it's going to do well. The story itself, it's a clever story. How original is it? I mean, you can, if you're watching it for the first time, it's not that hard to figure out what's going to happen. I like the little things they do, and it is kind of neat how they do sort of change the perspective of the story of the Wizard of Oz. So we're familiar with the original, at least the movie version. And how does the movie version compare to the book? I can't really speak for that. I've never tried reading any comparisons or anything. But when you watch the movie and seeing like when they're making the yellow brick road, that's kind of neat. And you really don't really think about why is there a yellow brick road? Why is it yellow? And stuff like that. But you see this in the movie, so I can appreciate little details like that. I think it's kind of cool. And then the way they kind of handle Dorothy and her companions with that, it's kind of interesting, like the way they approach it and do that, and I can appreciate that. I just don't like the changes to a couple of characters, whatever. But that's just minor things. So I'm sure I'll watch it again, like once it comes out on 4K Blu-ray. I'll probably watch it, or maybe I'll like it better the second time. But I think it was just me. So it's a good movie. Amazing production and all this stuff. But I don't know if maybe the songs just weren't as powerful for me or whatever as in the first one. I mean, because there's some good songs in the first one, and the performance and all that. I'm not going to go out and listen to the soundtrack, whatever. But yeah, something about the second one I don't know. I just didn't like it as much as the first, and I might be in a minority because it sounded like some people are kind of liking this one better than the first one. Whatever, that's great. That's awesome. So that's my take on it. And I'm not going to go through points of the story, but and I think that's the other thing, like with Elphaba's sister Nessa, and yeah, just like things get like kind of extreme a bit, but you need that for the point of the story to drive things, and so yeah, there you go. So that's my thoughts. I mean, I don't know what else to say, because I don't want to go into the specifics of plot points and all that. I think it's cool that they made a movie. It's brilliant what they're able to do, and the flying monkeys were great and everything. So you should definitely check it out, especially if you've seen the first one, or some theaters are showing both. Try to do a double feature, or see one day and see the other one the next day or something. So it's definitely worth checking out. So I didn't love it. You will probably like it more than me, unless you don't like musicals. But yeah, I think I was just whatever. I think it was just me. So that is going to be it. That's all I'm going to say about it. So yeah, that's this week's podcast. I didn't mention before. So happy Thanksgiving. This week is Thanksgiving in the U.S. I think maybe I did kind of mention it. So thank you for listening. Big thanks to Andrew Loken. He is a big supporter of the show. You can be a supporter by going to patreon.com/gmanfromheck. Any amount you can commit to will be awesome. If you commit at the Rick Jones tier or higher, you get access to the Secret Podcast from Heck, which is an additional 30 minutes podcast entertainment every single week. I'm back on the What If kick I may do some more after this week, but I think I'm pretty sure I'm gonna try to do an Off My Mind. There's something I've been wanting to hit on. I don't know if it's gonna be a full episode. Hopefully it will. We'll see. But there's definitely a lot. It's a topic that I can always talk about. So maybe it's time to talk about it again. But if you can't commit to monthly commitment, you can also help out by going to coffee.com/gmanfromheck, and you can buy me a virtual cup of coffee or 3. That's ko-fi.com/gmanfromheck. All right, so next week, what are we going to have? So like I mentioned before, it's going to be a little tricky with all the Thanksgiving stuff. Got some family coming out and couple dinners and everything. So hopefully, I'm going to do my best to try to do a full show as always. Comics are just so tricky. There's so many comics, but yeah. So hopefully we'll catch up on those next week. We'll see. The movie feature is going to be. At first, I was like, "There's no new movies coming out. There's nothing really." There's a couple things like Rental Family. I do want to see it. I don't think I could be wrong. I don't feel like it's a movie. It's like necessary to see it in a movie. I definitely watch it because I love Brendan Fraser, but I don't know about that. And there's another movie. I think there's Eternity. I don't know about that. I haven't even seen a trailer for that, so I don't know. But what my theater is getting, which I'm excited, I was hoping for this. They are getting Wake Up, Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. So I'm actually going to see that. That comes out on Netflix December something. So you'll get to hear about it. If your theater is not getting it early, you'll get to hear my thoughts on it. I will not spoil things. I will not say like what the mystery is or anything like that. So I'll definitely tiptoe around that. But I'm excited to see it because I really enjoyed the first one. The last, I'm trying to think because is this the fourth one? Because I know there's Glass Onion. I think that was the last one. But what was the second? Wait, what was the second? No. Anyways, I'm not going to think about that now. We'll talk about it next week. But watching the first one, I really enjoyed that. And seeing it in the theater, and I think all the other ones have been on Netflix. So I think it's really cool. Netflix, I will pay money to watch cool stuff in theaters because seeing it on the big screen is really cool, and hopefully it's an easy way to make more money, and it's not like costing a whole lot of money to get it to theaters. I don't know how that works. I have ideas, but we have that. So I'm excited to see it in the theater. And then, be more Welcome to Derry, Pluribus, Fionna and Cake, and that's it. And hopefully comics. Hopefully I will read all of next week's comics, or this week's comics, plus the ones that I didn't talk about this week. So I hope you are doing well. I hope you find time to enjoy yourself. I hope you have some time off of work. I don't know. Yeah, I got all this podcast stuff, so it's almost like I don't have time off, but that's my choice. There's also Record Store Day after the Saturday after Thanksgiving, so wish me luck on that. That I get the things that I have my eye on from the list. But I hope you are doing well. I hope you're taking care of yourself, and I hope you remember, be good to each other.